To the July 5th, 2019 regular board meeting of the Everett Public Schools Board of Directors. The meeting is hereby called to order. Please stand and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the secretary please call the roll?
President Andrews.
Present.
Vice President Mason. Director Lassane.
Present.
Director Mitchell.
Present.
Director Nankar. Student Representative Tran.
Thank you. We'll move to section 4.0, adoption of the agenda.
Okay. Consistent with the plans the board established during the 2018 summer planning workshop, this agenda contains recognition item, segment for public comments, segment for routine business, the superintendent's report, segment for strategic progress monitoring, segment for information items, segment for new business, and upcoming agenda items. Since publishing the agenda, the following changes have been made. Item 7.07, adoption of revised certified substitute salary schedule. In error, the date was corrected from June to July. Item 9.01, superintendent's report was added. The board may elect to change the order of business by majority of vote. Please note this is part of the agenda.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Lassane and seconded by Director Mitchell to adopt the agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. We'll take the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those
Aye.
opposed? Sorry. No. Say no. Motion carries. And the agenda is adopted. We'll move on to section 5.0, recognition. Before we recognize our new administrators, I just want to give a warm welcome to our new superintendent sitting to my right, Dr. Ian Saltzman. His first official day was yesterday. He comes to us from about as far across the nation as possible, previously having served with the school district of Palm Beach County, Florida, which is an extremely large district. It's hard for me to wrap my head around the fact it had, what, like 190,000 students?
197, yes, ma'am.
Yeah. And there you recently served as regional superintendent. Dr. Saltzman has also, earlier in his career, served as principals at all the different levels, elementary, middle, and high school, and started as a special education teacher. Correct. Yeah. So, welcome. This is his first meeting. We did not have time to do a dress rehearsal, so we're all in this together, and we're going to have a great evening. So, we will move on now to recognize our new administrators and current administrators who are moving into a new position.
Well, thank you very much. We've had the pleasure of spending the past 2 days with these administrators, and I can tell you with confidence they are an outstanding group of leaders. So you have a little biographical information in front of you, and we're not going to read that to you, but we're going to highlight some of their biggest accomplishments, the things they like to do when they're not at work, and why they chose Everett. And I'm going to start with one of our own, calling up Michael Takayoshi, who is the new principal of Cascade High School, where he has served as the assistant principal since 2014. Michael's biggest professional impact has been working with individual students, both as a teacher and an administrator. He enjoys seeing those students light up when they accomplish something they doubted that they could do. When Michael's not at work, he likes to be with his family, usually cheering on one of his 3 kids when they accomplish in some sort of venture with his wife. Michael is excited to continue his work in Everett due to the amazing students, family, and staff he gets to work with every day. The tremendous energy, achievement, and pride that is present in each and every day among so many people always makes him excited to get up and come to work every day. Michael Takayoshi.
I just wanted to say thank you to everyone here and the board and the school district. I'm just very excited and humbled to continue to serve the Cascade community. So thank you very much.
Go Bruins.
Go Bruins.
And I'm going to have Michael stay up because he's got a few team members to get introduced as well. So first we'll have Megan Claus come up. Megan is an incoming assistant principal at Cascade High School, and this year she completed her administrative internship and served as an academic interventionist specialist at Cleveland STEM High School in the Seattle Public Schools. Megan's point of pride is supporting the science team in Cleveland, this is a mouthful here, in critically examining the disproportional numbers of African American and Latinx students receiving D and F grades in science classes to understand root causes and then learning and implementing culturally responsive teaching strategies in order to directly address the disproportional outcomes. This work was collaborative, included student voice, and led to increased culturally responsive teaching in science classrooms and outcomes for kids. So Megan also enjoys spending time with her 2-year-old. She likes to camp, hike, spend times outdoors, and watch Cougar football, go Cougs, as well as travel. Megan's excited about working in Everett because it's her community. She's thrilled to lead where she lives and to join the work towards ensuring all kids graduate ready to take on what comes next. Megan Claus.
Thank you all. I'm just really excited to be at Cascade. Cascade is the high school that my house is within the boundary of, and I'm just really excited to serve where I live.
Good.
And next, oh, you get to stay here too, because we're going to have this almost the whole team. Mike Washington gets to come up next. And Mike is also he goes by Michael, but Michael already had that claimed, so Mike it's going to be. So he's been the special education teacher and boys varsity basketball coach at South Whidbey High School, and he's a 20-year Navy veteran. His biggest impact is when he taught, motivated, and monitored a student who was not attending school and was having lots of behavioral issues. The student was having issues at home that caused him to miss a lot of school. Over time, they worked together, they developed a trusting relationship, and they figured out a program that would help get him back on track and graduate from high school. And today, Mike is proud that that student has a job in construction and has become a great member of society. When Mike is not at work, he likes to travel to see his sons and vacation with his wife, Rebecca. Mike's excited about working with Everett because of Everett's high standards and diverse population. So Mike Washington.
Hi, I just want to say I'm very, very happy to be here, very, very passionate about the Everett way that I just learned more about yesterday and today. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to serve you and as well as the Everett School District.
So this is 3/4 of the Cascade team, and Jessica Easthope isn't here, but we wish you all well, so thank you very much. Next, we have Daniel Natividad. And Daniel, I'd like to welcome as the new principal to Silver Lake Elementary. Daniel's a familiar face in the Everett Public Schools. He started in 2013 as an assistant principal, and he has served that role in multiple schools. Daniel's point of pride is being part of a school team that has been, many school teams that have been recognized for high achievement due to the work and commitment and collaboration of the staff and the focus on students. When Daniel is not at work, he likes to be outdoors and active with his 2 sons and his wife. He loves camping, skiing, cycling, and traveling. He's excited to continue his work in Everett because he says we share the core values of equity and access, where we are collectively and comprehensively finding creative and innovative ways to ensure that our students have the opportunity to be successful. So Daniel Natividad.
So I want to say thank you for this opportunity. I'm extremely excited to continue serving our community.
And Daniel's going to get to stay up here too, because Silver Lake has 2 new administrators as well. So next I'll have Jessica Corneal come up. She joins the elementary assistant principal ranks as an assistant principal at Silver Lake and Emerson Elementary. She comes to us from Palm Beach County School District from a role as an instructional support team leader and some great experiences. Jessica's biggest professional impact, she said to date, and I have no doubt that there will be many more to come, is increasing the 2019 student achievement scores in 6 title schools as an instructional specialist this past year. When Jessica's not at work, she loves to spend time with family and friends, working out, and supporting scholarship foundations by finding deserving students for college scholarships. Jessica is excited to work in Everett because of its goal to inspire and educate all students, and she believes this is a district that puts students first, and Jessica is honored to work alongside great leaders to continue the great work of our district. So Jessica.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to say thank you, and I am honored to be a part of this district, and I look forward to serving our students, our community, and staff. Thank you.
So the Silver Lake team and part of Emerson. And next we have Marty Shevland. Marty joins the district as the new principal of Penny Creek Elementary School. She's been the principal at Discovery Elementary School in the Issaquah School District. Marty is proud of strengthening her programs and improving student results in her previous school. She works hard to create positive outcomes for all students. Marty loves the outdoors, hiking, tennis, and was telling me about a new hobby of bird watching. Marty also enjoys traveling and looks forward to visiting Ireland later this week. Marty's thrilled to join Everett because she loves the focus on each student achieving to high levels and how that goal is clearly integrated into the culture of this district. So Marty Shevland.
Thank you. I got to say, it's just been a real privilege these last few days to be with this team. I am really thrilled to be part of a district that has just such a clear purpose and is just showing us such great support and joy along the way. So I'm looking forward to being a part of that team, and hopefully I want to bring that to my staff as well. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Marty. And next we have Dr. Katie Rudolph. Katie is the incoming assistant principal. She's going to be sharing between Jefferson and Monroe Elementary Schools. Katie this past year was the Dean of Students at the School for Examining Essential Questions of Sustainability Charter School in Honolulu, Hawaii. Yes, her biggest professional impact, she believes, is in the work she's done coaching and supporting the staff she has worked with. She takes pride in building trusting relationships and allowing staff to focus on the amazing work that's happening in their classroom. Katie loves working with students and helping them through their struggles and seeing their aha moments. When Katie's not at work, she enjoys spending time with her husband and her 2-year-old son, Patrick, and they are proud owners of a 14-year-old cat named Chicken. Katie enjoys spending time outdoors and is excited to transition back to the Pacific Northwest, where there's outdoor activities, hiking, and birding, and listening to audiobooks. She can't wait to work in Everett because of everything the district has to offer for our staff and our diverse student population, and she's especially excited to establish some roots here and experience the Everett way. So Dr. Katie Rudolph.
Hi, good evening. I just want to say thank you for the opportunity, and I can tell you that I'm so excited for this year to come. Thank you.
So that's the Central Region administrators, and next Jeannie is going to share about the North Region administrators.
I can share about myself too. It's my second day in my new job. I get to do something different. I'm up here all the time, so this is exciting. First up, Paige Wen. I'm excited to present her. She's going to be our new principal for Hawthorne Elementary School. She has served with us the last 3 years at Forest View as assistant principal. She shared that her greatest professional impact is growing teacher leaders to serve students, families, and their learning community. Paige is proud of her implementation of a positive behavior intervention system, we know as PBIS, school safety, and the 21st century skills. In addition, very focused on closing the achievement gap. When Paige is not at work, she is eager to pay it forward to others for the opportunities she has received in life through volunteer work at her neighborhood church and mentoring student teachers and adult learners. In addition, Paige loves camping and kayaking with her 4 children, 2 Shih Tzu dogs, and her husband, Herman. She is excited about working at Hawthorne Elementary because of the diversity and needs of the students. With a high bilingual and English learner student population at Hawthorne, Paige is enthusiastic. She is very enthusiastic, by the way, more than I am, but yes, about utilizing her trilingual language skills to build relationships with students and families and to bridge school life with home life. Go Hawks, Paige.
It is a great honor to be the new Hawthorne principal. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Paige. Kathy Stillwell, who many of you already know, as well as Paige. She is our new principal of Garfield Elementary. Kathy joined our school district in 2013. Originally, she was our secondary math instructional facilitator and has been the director of mathematics and computer science for the last 4 years. She shared with me that her greatest professional impact and point of pride has been the K-12 Everett Public Schools balanced math model and changing mathematics instruction and student success in our classroom system-wide, everywhere. Also providing access and opportunity for all students, including our language learners and our special education students. When Kathy is not at work, she loves to be with her family, mountain biking trails in Darrington, or hanging out watching movies. Kathy is very excited. I have another very excited person. I'm going to have to compete in terms of excitement about working at Garfield because she says it is the best community with the best staff. And she feels it is a place she can connect and really make a difference in each student's life. Kathy feels like she won the lottery because the Garfield team is truly the best. Go Tigers.
Thank you so much. I am just incredibly honored to have this opportunity to serve the North community and be with the amazing, amazing staff, students, and families of Garfield. Go Tigers.
Next up is Krista Bierge. She is the new assistant principal for North Middle School. Krista joined us as the interim assistant principal just before our Christmas vacation here, winter break 2018. She came to us from East Lake High School in Lake Washington as a college and career specialist. So she gets to continue with us, so we're very glad about that. She shared with me that her greatest point of pride is really relationships she has built with staff and students. Krista has worked hard to get to know North Middle School systems in order to best serve the staff, and in doing so, she has built strong relationships. When Krista is not at work, she likes to hike, camp, and play with her 2 corgi puppies. Krista excited about working at North Middle School because North has helped her grow as a leader and administrator. Each day brings a new challenge, and Krista is excited to go to work and serve the staff and students of North Middle School. And we'll have a new school there. That'll be amazing. Krista.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm excited and humbled to be able to stay at North this year. Go Stars.
All right, well, I'm excited to share with you our newest members of the South Region Administrative Team, and I'm proud to introduce Mr. Matt Bennett, who will serve Everett Public Schools next year as the principal of Gateway Middle School. Matt has served at Cascade High School since 2015 as assistant principal. Matt shared that his greatest professional impact in his career to date is the intentional work that he has led to involve students and parents in reimagining student and community events at Cascade High School to be more inclusive and welcoming for all. When Matt is not at work, he likes to cook for his family and friends, visit the Oregon coast, and go fishing and crabbing. And I need to get some tips on that from you. What most excites Matt about being the principal of Gateway is becoming a part of the Gateway community. He looks forward to supporting the Gateway staff and students and furthering student voice and their sense of belonging at school. Mr. Bennett.
Thank you. It's extra exciting for me to be able to serve the Gateway community, who are my neighbors, as well as my son, who will be an incoming 6th grader. So really excited. Thank you.
All right, and it is my pleasure to introduce Alita Smoot, who will serve Everett Public Schools next year as the principal of Silver Firs Elementary. Alita has served as an assistant principal at View Ridge and Emerson since 2017 in our district. Alita shared that the greatest professional impact in her career so far is her service to struggling families and students with positivity and care by creating stronger relationships that connect them to school and increase their sense of belonging. When Alita is not at work, she likes to spend time with her family and discovering new adventures. Alita is excited about being the principal at Silver Firs because she is passionate about students, teaching, and learning. She cares about the people she works with and enjoys working with and listening to students to help them discover their passions and provide them with extended learning opportunities. Ms. Smoot.
Thank you for having me here tonight. I'm just honored to serve the Silver Firs families and the students and the staff, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to continue to serve Everett Public Schools. Thank you so much.
All right, and I am excited to introduce Dr. Laura Wellington, who will serve Everett Public Schools next year as the principal of Heatherwood Middle School. Dr. Wellington joins us from Western Washington University, where she has been the Director of Field Experiences for Student-Teacher Placement. Laura shared that her greatest professional impact to date was leading her previous middle school in Simi Valley, California, from subpar performance to a dynamic school with a focus on STEAM learning and continuous improvement. As a result of her leadership, academic achievement, attendance, and school ownership improved significantly. When Laura is not at work, she likes to be outdoors hiking, biking, and skiing. She also enjoys cooking, gardening, and traveling. Laura is excited to join the Heatherwood family as principal because she will have the opportunity to serve middle school students and provide a culture of commitment and care. She looks forward to having the honor of working with the talented and dedicated teachers at Heatherwood to soar to even greater heights. Dr. Wellington.
Thank you. It's an absolute honor to serve as Heatherwood's principal, and I can't wait to get back to middle school. Very excited.
All right, also joining us at Heatherwood next year, I'm excited to introduce Jaylene Finley, who will serve Everett Public Schools as assistant principal of Heatherwood. Jaylene joins us from the Spokane School District, where she has served recently as a high school assistant principal. Jaylene shared that her greatest professional impact in her career so far is the relationships and systems she has developed to help teams reflect and improve the positive impact of their work both collaboratively and individually. For example, PBIS teams, PLCs, and Tier 2 MTSS teams. When Jaylene is not at work, she likes to spend time with her family and friends, be in the outdoors, camping, kayaking, or hiking, reading, and traveling. Jaylene is excited about being Heatherwood's new assistant principal because Heatherwood is a strong learning community that is committed to its students and their continual growth. She is excited about joining a community that focuses on bringing out the best in all of our students. Ms. Finley.
Thank you. Limlimt, white, inchai squeezed, huist tix and taklamuch. Thank you. My name is Jaylene Finley, also Walking Stick Woman. I'm a member of the Colville Confederated Tribes. I'm a member and a resident of Washington, and I feel like my community extends over here into Everett, and I'm very humbled and honored to serve the students, families, and staff of the Everett community. Thank you.
And now I'd like to invite Dana Riley Black, who will introduce our newest CAST team member.
Well, I'm proud to introduce our new Director of Mathematics, Mike McCarthy. Mike has a depth of experience as both a math educator and an administrator. Mike comes to us from Federal Way Public Schools, where he most recently served as principal for Sequoia Middle School. Mike's most major professional points of pride to date have been in turning around two struggling schools at two different levels in two different school systems. Covington Elementary School in the Kent School District and Sequoia Middle School in Federal Way Public Schools were transformed between 2013 and 2019. Is that right? Both of those? Okay. And Mike eliminated the disparities by focusing on high-quality, job-embedded professional development systems and structures, which is going to be key for his work with us now. When he's not at work, he loves to travel with his 5 amazing children. He runs slowly, plays an adult baseball league, and loves to attend Major League Baseball games around the country. Or as I've come to learn just in the past 2 days, he might enjoy a game at Funco Field, like last night. Mike is excited about working as the Director of Mathematics in Everett because of how he has experienced with Everett's learning community the district's core values, especially those of equity and collaboration. He believes that the opportunities of intersectionality of these values and quality mathematics education is infinite, and he cannot wait to begin working with a community committed to each student.
Good evening. I'm very excited to be here in Everett. I hope to use my experience to continue the great work of Kathy Stillwell, creating that culture of high quality mathematics. So thank you for the opportunity.
Our closer, Dr. Chad Golden.
Thank you very much. As the outgoing Director of Early Learning, incoming Director of Categorical, it's my honor to introduce Ann Arnold, Director of Early Learning. Ann previously served as the Director of Pre-K and Elementary Success in the Highline School District. Ann's biggest professional impact to date has been her work building a comprehensive P5 system in Highline Public Schools to support the district's youngest learners and families. It included all the critical components from family engagement, instructional quality, vertical and horizontal alignment, strong leadership support for early learning, cross-sector work, high-quality preschool, and community partnerships. The broad and comprehensive nature of the work brought key stakeholders together and positively impacted all levels of the system, preschool through 12th grade. When Ann is not at work, she likes to be with family. Ann and her husband have 3 grown sons and a new daughter-in-law. They enjoy celebrating special events together, outdoor activities like hiking and boating, and the occasional travel adventure. Ann is excited about working in Everett because Everett has a vision for the early learning work that has been a priority for several years, and she believes Everett is ready to take that vision to the next step by expanding P3 systems that work. Because Everett has a long history of being a strong, stable district, new systems and innovation can be sustained and have the kind of long-lasting impact that she likes to be part of. Ann Arnold.
Good afternoon. I really am thrilled to be joining the Everett team. I have worked alongside the early learning group here for several years in other roles, and I just look forward to the coming months and being able to serve our youngest students and their families to be successful in kindergarten and beyond. Thank you very much.
We'd like to do a picture now, if that's possible. Yes. So I'm not going to say it's the last one you ever get taken, because there'll be many more. But if you can come up here, the board will come down around you. We'll get a picture of all of you together, okay?
I don't know if we can fit us all in there.
Sure you can.
He's like a white angle.
Everybody else.
You got a white angle.
We have to make change.
You stand to your side like this.
Thank you.
They're skinniest. How we look at that?
Okay, this isn't going to work over here, folks. You got to scoot that way. Pull them closer together.
We like having the flag.
That's going to work okay. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, I'm going to take another one. 1, 2, 3. Are you good? I'm good. All right, thank you.
Well, welcome to all the new and returning administrators. You are an impressive bunch, and we look forward to a exciting year ahead. Get lots of rest in the next few weeks because actually, I guess you're hitting the ground running now, but welcome. And thank you everyone for those nice introductions. So we will move to section 6.0, audience comments. I'll read a little bit first, and then I'll ask. Okay. The school board sets aside time during each regular board meeting to hear from our constituents. We do this because we value public input and want to hear and understand the perspectives you bring to the table. Dr. Saltzman, are there any requests to comment during the public comments time?
Yes, we have 3 requests this evening. Okay.
On behalf of the board, I welcome you. Our school board meetings are designed to conduct district business in public. We welcome ideas and opinions presented in that same spirit. I will share how this portion of the meeting is conducted. The superintendent will call you to the podium to speak in the order in which you signed up this afternoon, and each speaker will have 3 minutes for your comments. All comments are recorded and made available for future viewing by the board and public. This public comment time is for the board to listen to what you have to say. It's not a time for debate or discussion, and board members will not respond to individual comments during this time. As board president, I have the responsibility to ensure the meeting and all conversations are orderly, productive, and respectful. I appreciate your cooperation in helping me carry out that responsibility. Dr. Saltzman, who is our first speaker?
Thank you. Our first speaker tonight is Dr. James Richardson, resident of the district, Tamber Creek Elementary uniforms.
Welcome, Superintendent Saltzman, to the district.
Thank you.
I'd like to officially register my objection to the abruptly announced uniform policy set to go in effect at Tambar Creek Elementary this fall. The district has not followed its de facto practice of garnering significant parental support before making adjustments, site-specific adjustments to the Everett School District dress code. In this case, the imposition of a school uniform. This is exactly how uniforms were adopted at Whittier and are about to be adopted at Hawthorne with parental involvement. Instead of this de facto practice, my sources who were present at the initial PTA meeting with the new principal revealed to me that the uniform policy was imposed by district officials on her a priori. No parents were involved in the making of this uniform policy, nor were they consulted. I'm asking that the school board here tonight requests that Superintendent Saltzman postpone the imposition of this unethically imposed uniform policy until the 2020-2021 school year. That's a 12-month delay. Furthermore, I ask that the school board request the district to devolve the decision regarding any site-specific dress code alterations to the PTA of the new school, who in coordination with the principal shall jointly, with parental involvement, decide whether a uniform or site-specific alteration to the district dress code should prevail at all at the school, starting in the 2020-2021 academic year. As a professional social scientist, Dr. Saltzman, I have recently reviewed much of the literature on the effectiveness of school uniforms in changing child behavior. There is no unequivocal, properly designed social science research that supports the necessity of school uniforms in creating either social cohesion at a new school or in preventing bullying or harassment at existing schools. My sister-in-law is a 30-year veteran of the Modesto City School District, turned around 4 poverty-stricken elementary schools with no uniforms. Social cohesion in mid-sized social groups composed of strangers, which is what a school is easily created with charismatic leadership, clear values that are enforced, and structured routines. Antisocial behavior in similar groups is also prevented through charismatic leadership, clear communication of behavioral standards, and quick disciplinary intervention. There is no need for this district to interfere with my child's or any child's creative self-expression through clothing in order to obtain polite attendance at an elementary school. It is my child's First Amendment right to wear appropriate clothing that doesn't violate the existing district dress code. And the district has no compelling educational reason to impose a uniform code at any of its schools. In well-educated and affluent neighborhoods like ours, Dr. Saltzman, children are constantly corrected and told no because they're already held to a very high behavioral standard. Let them enjoy picking their own clothing when they go to school. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Richardson. Dr. Richardson, excuse me.
Our next speaker is Ted, make sure I don't want to get this wrong, Masserat. I hope I'm close to that. Okay. Norton Playfield, resident of the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
As we're all becoming aware, the leasing of the school board's land of Norton Playfield was a backroom deal between Gary Cohn and Ed Peterson of Housing Hope. I'm sure most of you were surprised that within 2 days of the vote, the lease was drafted and signed without public discussion, evidence that the two men got together behind the scenes and orchestrated this plan without appropriate input from the community. Before your board voted unanimously to approve the land at Norton Playfield, 5 carefully appointed speakers spoke in favor of this project. Over 150 people who overwhelmingly reject this proposal crowded into Sequoia High School's cafeteria, a Port Gardeners community meeting on, I think it was June 11th or 10th, after finally having the information about this proposal. None of our voices were represented when the board voted on this ill-conceived project. You as the board represent our interests in the community. I spoke last month at your board meeting. I received a letter in response from the board, which I appreciated. In the letter, it was emphasized the need to find housing for homeless people in the area. Communication is a two-way street. I understand your position. While the politics underlying how this decision were made were egregious, and their proposed location to house up to 200 people in a single-family historical neighborhood is flat out wrong, the need to support the most vulnerable remains an enormous problem. I know this all too well. So so you know, I've been a mental health counselor practicing in the Everett area for over 20 years, specializing in treating trauma of at-risk youth. I provided counseling for Sequoia High School students since 1998. I've sat for literally hundreds of hours with children addressing the impact of the direct consequences of living a life of impermanence. The housing issue is enormously important to me. The difference in this process of understanding each other's point of view is that you have the power in this moment to do the right thing and walk away from the lease. You're a new board. There's no need for loyalty for Gary Cohn. His decisions put you in a really bad place. If this was a democratic decision, you would have heard our opinions, and I trust there would have been a different result with your vote to lease the Norton Playfield. That didn't happen. To close, collaborate with us in finding the appropriate space. We're mobilized as a neighborhood to fight this project. You saw the turnout at the last Port Gardner meeting. The outrage you heard is only the tip of the iceberg. We have the capacity to run a PR campaign to expose how we got to this point, which will include defeating any bond measure you propose. We'd rather not get to that place. Healthy organizations adjust to mistakes that are made. This was a mistake. This is an opportunity for you to step out of this mess gracefully so we can move forward together in finding the right location through an above-board process for this important project. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Next speaker is Mr. Greg Williams, resident of the district, Norton Playfield.
Hi. I had no plan of coming up here and talking today, but I had an hour, so I wrote down a couple notes. I agree a lot with what he said about the playfield. It really created a lot of mistrust with us, how it was done in 10 minutes without any of our neighbors ever being notified about it at all. You're taking a green space away that has been used by this community for over 75 years. And before that, it was where Jackson Elementary School once was, so I'm sure kids in our community used it then too. The 14 years that I've lived there, I've watched my kids grow up there, learn to walk and play snowball fights and all that stuff. It's really been a great part of building our community. We've done block parties there every year. We've done birthday parties there. We've met a lot of our neighbors. A lot of our other neighbors up on the hills come down and walk their dogs. It took us almost 2 years to get the historic overlay extended onto our street, which has some of the oldest homes in Everett already on it. And it took 10 minutes to have that taken away by the school board and the backdoor deal with Ed. He is a former chair member of this board, and he spoke at that meeting that for 10 years he's been trying to get that land and been interested in that land. And in those 10 years that I have lived there, I've watched that land deteriorate. They were no longer doing much maintenance there. It would be mowed. They took away the exercise equipment. They took away the goalposts that used to be used for the local community soccer leagues. And they even put up no trespassing signs. People speak that it's useless land. Well, when there's no trespassing signs, most people don't want to go into it. It has been there for over 75 years. It's been a part of our community. And for them to allow, for you to allow it to proceed and build 34 to 70 unit high density complex on about 1.5 acres of buildable land will really destroy our historic neighborhood. Green space never returns. Our children need a place to run and live, laugh and play together. And if you allow this to go through, then that will be gone. I came up with an idea that if you must do something with that land, how about you leave half of it a park or a field for us, maybe get Boeing or Electricians Union or one of the construction trades to build something over there that are giving these kids that are struggling the ability to get a skill that is in high demand. Since it's supposed to be used for school, why not give them the skill that can allow them to make a great, to reward their time going to the school, give them a skill that can allow them to get a great job, make a great income, and buy their own homes. So it continues to be used for a school process. Most of all, I just like to say that please don't take away our green space. It'll never return. It's been a really big part of my family and our community. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Just three. Okay. All right, we will move on to the consent agenda. Dr. Saltzman, will you please provide an introduction to the consent agenda?
Yes. The board's consent agenda includes repetitive business items such as meetings minutes, personnel actions, expense vouchers, surplus lists, gifts, grants, and recurring contracts. Sometimes it includes items that occur less frequently but are routine business nature. These items are usually reviewed by the board in the Friday reports 1 or more weeks before the board meeting. That gives the directors time to ask staff questions or consider discussion about the policy implications of those items. The board votes on the consent agenda in a single motion. By its definition, a consent agenda is not debatable. In the case of this consent agenda, the Superintendent's office has received no questions or comments regarding these items. Therefore, the consent agenda is presented as a published for board approval.
Thank you. A motion to approve the consent agenda as presented is in order.
Second.
Been moved by Director Mitchell and seconded by Director Nankar to approve the consent agenda. Does any director wish to remove an item from the agenda, consent agenda, and place it in the new business section? Hearing no requests, we'll proceed to the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The consent agenda is approved. We'll move on to section 8.0, board comments. This is an opportunity for directors to share their activities and comments that relate to board service. Shall we start with the Director Mitchell?
Sure. Okay, the administrators all left, but thank you. And I'd like to welcome Dr. Saltzman as well. My daughter is actually a senior at Jackson. And when I told her, you actually, I hope this is okay that I say this publicly because you released it publicly, that you have cerebral palsy, that you have a disability, that you taught special ed, she was very excited for that because we have a need for that kind of understanding in this district. Also, the diversity of the new administrators. I think that's something that Debbie has worked really hard for, is to get some diversity in our classrooms, in our buildings. And so it was really nice to see some of those efforts are coming to fruition. I know it's been hard. It's not going to stop, but I really appreciate that. But one thing I do when I meet new kids in the district, and I appreciate all of the bests and so excited tonight, because if I meet any child, doesn't matter where they are in this district, and I say, what school do you go to? And they go, I go to Emerson. I go, oh, you go to the best school. And they all stand taller. I go to Gateway. You go to the best school. They stand taller when you tell them, because they know each of those schools is an individual culture, and it's the best for them, for that staff. And so I take no offense with everybody calling their school the best, because I think individually they are all the best. But lastly, I missed the last board meeting, but just graduation. I know it was probably spoken about at that last board meeting, but that really is my favorite time of the year. And when a young man who lives in my neighborhood gave me a hug on the stage impromptu, I mean, come on. It does not get any better than that. When these kids are just so happy to graduate and to go on to the next phase, and that's why we do what we do. And to have Jackson, I think, be the biggest class ever, that's just really amazing. So I just want to recognize that since I missed the last board meeting. So thank you.
Thank you. Director Lassane?
I also would like to say welcome aboard to Dr. Salzman. It's great to have you on our board and for you to be here. I understand you had the opportunity to get on the yellow bus and ride around on Monday.
Yes, Monday morning.
So that was pretty good. You got first-hand chance to see the district, so that's great. I appreciate that. And I do want to say welcome to all of the new administrators. They're not here, but I'm very excited also to see them in action come September. I'm looking forward to having the opportunity of meeting them at their schools, as well as at the saucers or at the, cultural nights or the baseball game, football games, whatever. I'm looking forward to seeing them and meeting them up close and personal. So I too am excited about this upcoming year.
I'll echo my fellow directors' comments about welcoming Dr. Salzman and then also all the rest of the administrators. And what was truly sort of exciting for me was as the cabinet superintendents, I guess, right? Is that the correct term? Went through this short bios or briefs about each of them, how they addressed our core values of equity and learning and respect and diversity, and that's sort of it's heartwarming. It's I don't know. It's happy, and a lot to look forward to. And just I'll apologize for being a little late. I had another board meeting. Busy day. Yeah, but yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. It's really encouraging to see the new administrators. Some of them I thought perhaps I should check their ID. It's like, oh my gosh. Like that's one thing about getting older is everyone's so young. Actually, Tracy, at last board meeting, we weren't able to comment on graduations because we got a little sidetracked with recognizing Dr. Cohn's retirement, but graduations were amazing this year, and I don't know, for some reason I was just stuck with shaking the hands of every student and looking in their eyes and just realizing that they were launching into the world that we're hoping that we know they'll be successful in. But students come in so many shapes and sizes and everything that it really put such meaning behind that. When we talk about each student, it just was absolutely cementing that idea. So it was especially moving experience this year. And I'm so glad we have it in the event center where families can come and cousins and nieces, and it's not restricted to just a high school gymnasium. I think we lose track of that fact, but it used to not be that welcoming. So anyway, we will move on to Dr. Salzman's first superintendent report.
Okay, thank you. Before I acknowledge the good news and the great accolades for everybody, I just want to thank the Board of Directors and the community for a warm welcome. It's been an outstanding few days, And I want to publicly thank the cabinet for their support the past few days. Great job. I want to thank Darlene and Jamie, who have kept me on the straight and narrow the past few days. But a special thank you for Dr. Cohn and also to Joyce Stewart, thanking them for their great work in this district. And we should always remember their great work and also how they made me feel. So I want to publicly acknowledge them this evening. Start off, Everett High School's Host Club Advisor, Kirsten Harvey, was awarded the Washington Host Outstanding Advisor of the Year Award for 2018-19 at the International Leadership Conference in Florida. And future health professionals for those health occupation students of America. Let's honor her this evening, okay? Congratulations to Silver Firs Elementary on earning your bronze certification in waste and recycling. The green team at Silver Firs Elementary is leading the school in new efforts to minimize waste and recycle properly. Each year, Jefferson Elementary School staff-led family engagement team comes up with an art project to highlight their annual family art walk and ice cream social. This spring, Jefferson students took part in a school-wide art project to create peace poles. Each pole represents a grade level with art created by the students and peace written in several languages. The reading and math summer challenges have been launched to help prevent the summer slide backwards. Okay, want to note free summer meals for all children ages 1 to 18 are now available at many of our schools and is being promoted on our website. Please check the website. The enrollment for summer school currently right now is at 2,317 students are enrolled for summer school. The bus tour, which I began on Monday, I know it concluded Tuesday. I want to just tell you what a great moment that was to see everybody start the process. And the great moment of the cabinet and supporting that. Kudos to Dr. Peter Scott and the team for doing that. It was wonderful. And I just want to share with the board and the public how each cabinet member presented about their passion for Everett. And that's why we have such a fantastic school district. The pride by your leaders to share with new people, that is what it's all about. And again, to the cabinet for sharing their pride in Everett and why they're here. It makes everybody's job just spectacular. So thank you again for what you did yesterday and the day before. Mill Creek, Lowe's business generously gifted away Gateway Middle School students a wheelchair accessible inlaid paver patio, which raised the planer bed. Tambar Creek Elementary School is still on track of completion this summer. So you can see here the parking areas have been paid. And North Middle School, the school's out and the contracts have been busy. Summer planning, the completion of this modernization. Its too is on track. To have schools on track is a kudos to the construction department, financial department. So I salute everybody, and to be on track is where you want to be. So again, thank you to the construction department and the financial department for having those schools on track. And that is my report this evening. And again, I want to thank you. It's been sunny for a few days, but tonight we're back to our usual weather. So it's great to have it at a board meeting. Thank you.
Yeah. Welcome to summer in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
So next we'll move to section 10.0 strategic progress monitoring. And this evening we'll have a presentation on our integrated technology plan.
Good evening.
Mr. Beckley. Good evening.
Well, good evening. Thanks for having us here. We are excited to be here, and this is our annual update before the board, and we know we have a new board member since we've updated the board before, a new superintendent as well. So we've included some sort of additional information to make sure we're not, you'll notice on the board docs, we kind of put a cheat sheet in there. So as we say terms, you can become familiar with what exactly some of the things we're talking about are. So feel free to reference that as we work through. So as the Chief Information Officer, I represent the work of nearly 50 people in our department that do the work of our team. We're the Learning and Information Technology Services Department. I know it's a mouthful. We call ourselves the LITS Department. As we like to say, we we like to refer to ourselves as it's learning and service with IT in the middle. So that's how we came up with our title. We have 3 directors that'll join me tonight. Joanne Budewig, who is the director of the Learning Management Services team. She actually has a large chunk of tonight's presentation, which is really, I think, a testament to the fact that this plan has transitioned from infrastructure and hardware to learning, teaching, and assessment in some of those goal areas. So there's a large chunk of that Joanne will cover. Ken Toyne is our director of the network services team, and so he'll have a piece as well. And Scott Jenkins is the director of our customer and technology services team, and he will have a chunk of tonight's presentation. So we're just really grateful for all the work in working with all the departments, and hopefully you'll hear the theme throughout tonight's presentation that it's not just us alone that does this work, but it really is this transition from the integration in all the departments, and that should be a theme that reflected through tonight's presentation. So our objectives are we're about halfway through the 6-year technology plan. So we've just completed year 3, so we want to take some time to highlight year 3, look ahead to year 4, and then finish up. This is a piece we added to kind of what have we learned so far, and how will that impact, and what sort of future impact considerations did we learn in these first 3 years to inform the next iteration of the integrated tech plan. So we'll spend some time on that as well. This is the strategic plan, pieces of cross-section of a lot of work that takes place in the district. Our integrated technology plan has 6 goal areas. This is work that we've shown you before. It's modeled out the national educational technology plan, and our presentation is organized around each of these goal areas to kind of highlight the work taking place in each of those. And we'll begin with infrastructure, because infrastructure is such a key part of the work taking place, especially this summer, and necessary for the work moving forward. We also included a couple of slides before we get started in that of the implementation process itself. So the work in the integrated tech plan, when it started, and reading the book Project Red, and we read some literature from work from Intel and from the National Technology Plan, is research best practice about the pieces that are present in districts that have implemented one-to-one technology effectively, have these pieces present in their district, in their operations. And so we, in our department, use this in working with other departments as sort of a roadmap to gauge how we are doing on implementing this. So it's not just the hardware, but it's in the financial resources in that piece, but it's also building staff capacity and coordinating with school administration and engaging the district leadership team as well. And so the implementation process is listed on these 2 slides, and we put that up there just as a reminder for we constantly come back and review this. And we also let it inform sort of where are celebrations and where are successes, but where are also some areas that we need to strengthen. And you'll hear sort of themes throughout tonight as we go through this about areas of great success and areas that we can strengthen moving forward. So kind of to kick things off, I'll have Scott come forward and talk a little bit about infrastructure.
Thank you, Brian. This year, as you can see, we had all 4 high schools fully into the one-to-one program. So we deployed over 2,000 Toshiba laptops, almost 4,000 Lenovo laptops to the high school students. Another 3 schools were deployed and became one-to-one. So we have one-to-one laptops at the high schools, but one-to-one in the elementary and the elementary schools now, that means a Chromebook card in every classroom when they're one-to-one. So that means every summer we have to take Chromebook cards from around the district, move them as well as new ones, and implement that and getting them set up at the schools. So we had 1,700 Chromebook cards in those one-to-one elementaries, and we had to update some older ones as well. And this past 2 weeks ago, we collected all of the laptops at the high schools at the same time on the same day. Yeah, same time, same day. As part of that life cycle management process that Brian will talk about, we're now surplusing some of the old desktops that are 8 to 10 years old now. We've added some more staff to support the one-to-one technologies, and we've done some of the district telecommunications upgrades.
You'll see when I go to the next slide that these are the list of the elementary schools that are not yet one-to-one, and the list is becoming shorter and shorter. It's kind of a tipping point year where most of the elementary schools are now one-to-one. And you can see that Madison, Penny Creek, and Woodside will be starting their training this year to go one-to-one next year. But still this year, these are kind of what we've been doing the last couple of years and what we're projected to do this next year at the elementaries. And when we look over to the sites that are one-to-one, you can see now most of the elementaries are one-to-one. We're enhancing Wi-Fi, we're getting them set up, we're constantly updating and upgrading the schools as we go along. The middle schools, we'll have 3 of them this next year going one-to-one. That'll be Eisenhower, Evergreen, and Heatherwood. And Gateway at North will be starting their training this year to go one-to-one next year. And those also will be one-to-one devices, just like at the high schools, but instead of laptops, these will be enhanced Chromebooks. And that will be for students to take home as well. The high schools are all now one-to-one, so this will be, we've collected all the devices, we're repositioning this summer, and then we'll be redeploying them next fall as well.
So as Scott mentioned, our high schools all have one-to-one now, and we have systems in place that can track the activity or the use of these devices. And so we've distilled a mountain of usage data into this simple graph that shows what each high school student has in terms of hours on average during the year. So it ranges from perhaps 250 hours to almost 600 hours a year for students, depending on what school they're at. So looking forward, mostly this summer, we've got a lot of activities going on to get the middle schools ready for the one-to-one rollout for their one-to-one devices. So before we can do anything, we have to go into the schools and enhance and upgrade their Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi systems in our elementary schools are just over 9 years old now. And so in order for the capacity for one-to-one to accept the Wi-Fi demands, we're going to upgrade those schools. Eisenhower, Evergreen, Gateway, and Heatherwood will get brand new Wi-Fi. We'll do Gateway next year. We're going to update our security cameras at the Memorial Stadium and Lincoln Field as, again, part of our safety and security component of the tech plan. And we're going to continue the deployment of these one-to-one carts to View Ridge, Mill Creek, Forest View, Jefferson, and Tambark Creek. And then again, once our Wi-Fi upgrades are completed, those 3 middle schools will also get brand new Chromebooks for each student. Those are the enhanced Chromebooks that Scott mentioned that allow for inking and other advanced features in the Chromebook environment. While all that's going on, we're also going to be surplusing with Scott's team 1,500 teacher presentation stations. Those are what we call the multimedia stations. There's the tables in the front of their classroom, projectors and speakers and that kind of thing. We're going to replace the computer that drives that technology on that table. Those computers are easily up to 10 years old. We're going to replace those. We're hoping with a device called a Chrome box, which is a Chrome-based device, small factor unit that allows for the same audio-video technology presentations that the computer itself does, but also allows for substitute and guest teachers to take advantage of that technology without having to hassle with the login and that kind of thing. Turn it over to Joanne.
So we now have a lot out there, and so how are we using it? And that's really the meat of the situation, and it is the larger change. And so we're looking at what we're doing with our teachers. We have 950 of our 1,567 teachers trained. So we've gone through a significant number of cohorts. We're now at that place where that initial, what does it mean to have computers in my classroom and how will that look? We've gone through that initial bump. We are continuing utilizing the devices for authentic learning. We're starting to find our pockets of early adopters who are out there in front who are now becoming examples for their colleagues. We are beginning pushing through our utilization of Canvas. This was really our first official push year where we launched. We have our math portal went up in October, and in that we have 572 teachers using Canvas, and we have 14,000 students actively in some capacity, whether it's the training of their devices, whether it's an activity after school, or it's utilizing day-to-day in their classroom, engaging in Canvas use. We continue to see expansion in our cloud environments. We are starting to see so that collaborative sharing space, 365 and Google Apps increase. We have our curriculum maps are showing those new educational technology standards. The state adopted the international standards last year, and so we're starting to see those infuse into our curriculum maps. And then we've added, and I'll show you, accommodations view within the gradebook. So our teachers at a click can see the accommodations of their special needs students, their 504 students, and the test result level of their EL students. And that's something that we've just been able to add into the gradebook just this spring. So I'll give you a little picture of these things, just to see the authentic learning. As we know in part of our plan, we have instructional support for the initial launch year of embedded in our schools. And then as the school moves into year 2 and year 3, that support comes out into our department with our directors, coordinating with teachers and leveraging that instructional support more on an on-demand team approach rather than day-to-day embedded. We do have instructional facilitators continuing at our high schools. We will have a point for our 3 middle schools, and then you will see the growing support in the elementary schools coming from, so this is after the implementation from the levy, and we build out those models for professional development. But this tells you where the schools are and where the focus is in each year of that concentrated support. As we look at the high schools, we do continue with our instructional technology facilitator. We had the luxury of one of our directors helping at the Sequoia this year. So our online high school is actually leaving Blackboard and moving to Canvas in this next year. They've started this summer as their launch, which is a $50,000 savings going into the year. It also builds a coordinated support for our online courses, and those teachers now are modeling how to use it in the blended learning capacity. So that's been an exciting transition for us. Because we had new board members and our new superintendent, we wanted to give you a quick glimpse of some of what Canvas looks like. So this is a typical student interface. They would log in, they would see their classes. These are the classes of the teachers using Canvas. This happens to maybe be my daughter. You have the look. As we begin through that exercise, then what we have is a calendar. So those are all of my courses. My homework and activities are all showing there. The students can change the view so they can see the assignments more in a date order. We push out a blueprint course so every teacher has a starting place. And then they can customize it. So as you see here, one of our teachers has videos available to their students. They also had a discussion board. And then what we're finding, and I'll show you the statistics in a minute, is that our teachers are primarily starting with this being a way to give the students an archive of the work they've done. So content is the #1 way teachers have started using Canvas. As we look at that also, we've launched our portals. Our math portal has 100 views a day on average by our staff. That was launched first. Just in the last month, we've launched our English language arts portal and our social studies portal. So we look forward, those will be available for the summer for the training. And when we launch our new teachers, they'll be able to log into one place. And these are the kind of views, that's an entire year represented on a page within Canvas. If they teach multiple courses, you can see the navigation at the top. They just switch right away to their other courses. So it's really accessible. It's very visual. They can start putting video content in there, training through there. They can even do a discussion board. And what we've added in a couple of the courses is a feedback loop. So the teachers right there can hit feedback back to the developers of the site asking for more. So it's pretty exciting where we've gotten to. Here's what we're seeing in our use right now. The modules is a way that they're coordinating their content. It's a way that they're chunking it out. We're seeing 62% to manage their online assignments, but you're seeing the pages as well is a high use of delivering content to the students. We're seeing the quizzes feature just starting to take off. Some of our curriculum folks are developing common assessments. So like our science students, you'll see an example of that in elementary, are pushing out a common assessment that'll be delivered through Canvas. Starting to see, as you see, we're continuing to grow throughout the year our Office 365 use. But I will tell you, we are still heavily active in Google. So we are living in a two-platform world. Our students and our teachers are navigating between, and what's nice in Canvas is actually both worlds can be connected in a Canvas course. You can go to Google and 365, but start in Canvas. And so that allows the students some preference in how they like to work, but they're still submitting their assignments in the same common space. So we still have a very high use of Google Classrooms, and the bottom graph is telling you our use of our Chromebooks. So we're seeing heavy utilization of our Chromebooks in the classroom throughout the year. This is my favorite part. I wish as a teacher I had had this. Often we used to send lists of our students' accommodations, and the list used to be in paper and went into the file drawer, or maybe it was on your desk, but you had to cover it up because it was sensitive information. And then it got sent electronically, but you had to go find where you saved that file. This is now in the grade book, right next to the student's name. Every day I go in and take attendance is that little alert sign. I pop it up and I can see their medical, I can see their EL, but I can see their 504 accommodations, and I can see their IEP accommodations. So when I'm providing the assignment in my grade book, I can see where my students need to. And this is, I have to credit one of the team members, Pete Dronsnick, to figure out the grade book developers didn't mean it for this purpose. He figured out how to use it that way. So we're really excited for that moving forward into next year. So as we move on, we're looking at hosting our next schools. We are looking to create teacher networks, so we're going to leverage both Canvas and our Zoom and face-to-face to create pockets at each school that are connecting across schools for that work in authentic learning and using the technology. We have a summer where we are promoting our new one-to-one schools, middle schools. We already had a room packed last week, and we have 2 days of Canvas Camp again in August. We started using Canvas for our credit recovery. So we were able to have one school build out the program and share it with the other schools, and the content fully developed in the credit recovery course. Just today, we set up someone on home medical, being able to get to that content material. So it's really exciting to have it housed in a place that's so adaptable. And then we'll be integrating authentic learning experiences and our new state technology standards further into our maps. And then next year, we'll be opening up gradebook access to our elementary school, families as well. We've always had it 612. Next year, we'll have it open to our elementary families. As we move from teaching to learning, I'm staying up here because I am the instructional lens, and I'm very excited to say that we are moving not just in our schools, but in our departments. I'm really pleased. Maintenance we have helped train their leads, and now their leads are training their staff. So we partner with them to come up with materials, and then they're housing on site when their schedule allows those kinds of trainings face-to-face. That happens with food service as well. So our goal is to continue that professional development of building efficiency and effectiveness into all of our departments across the network, as well as we are building staff and student classes for our building leadership in Canvas so they can also promote materials and come up with a common space to house their information for their students. We have complete digital resources launched this year in our science and our math class, and I will tell you there's been growing pains in our first year, full year of Canvas, and working with vendors and delivering through Canvas, but it's very exciting and the teachers are hungry for it. We also launched Spanish in our digital platform there. We explored software to equip creation. So the big shift in learning with technology is not consumer, but creator. And so video software is really important. We've piloted and we're looking at launching new video software next year with our students K-12. So that they can do more of the creation. Right now they're grabbing free tools. We want to be able to provide them a space to do that and training for that. So one of those training pieces is WeVideo, and it was piloted at one of our schools. And when we talk about authentic learning, our students created something for each other. Thought we'd share that.
Whittier Wildcats. Summer is almost here, which means it's time to find some great books to read. Each student will be getting a summer reading brochure that explains everything about how to successfully complete your summer reading challenge. Remember, look for your AR level range, look at your summer AR goal, then pick some fun books and enjoy reading. Now let's go to our reporters, Addison and Ian, to hear what Whittier students want to read this summer.
Hey Ellen, what books are you going to be reading this summer?
I'm probably going to be reading more Jedi Academy books.
Cool. Hey Avery, what kind of book do you think you're reading this summer?
A big chapter book of How to Train Your Dragon.
Cool, sounds good.
So just a snippet, it's actually housed on their website, and I will tell you several of the schools have created their own. I thought this was cute. Everett High has a real snazzy one, but I thought this was sweet. What was wonderful is our librarians are connecting around digital and media literacy, and so Deb Payne has been working all year at Everett High School with green screen and that. This was Shannon Heininger at Whittier Elementary. She wanted to try something. This was their first attempt, was trying WeVideo, and her students found it very accessible, and now it has a practical purpose as it's on their website. So that's when we talk about creator and authentic audiences. How do we have them doing it for a purpose that's really valuable and actually a service to their own school? As we look forward, we want to continue to expand that departmental professional development. We're going to be hosting an afternoon of tech sessions for the office staff in this building in August. We want to continue, we are managing devices to enhance learning. We have some software we just, on the agenda was RFP results of management software, and so helping our teachers be able to launch with a 48-minute period in middle school. They got to get those kids in right away. So the software launches all the computers in the classroom to the site they want it on and allows the teacher some viewing ability. So we're looking forward to that. We want to continue to empower our students with presentation tools, and we are going to integrate more into our Canvas platform. We want to enrich our digital lessons. Our librarians have come up with a sequence K-12. It's lovely, but it's a start, and we need to do more just-in-time kind of pieces for it. And then we're going to be implementing instructional materials that, as art, physics, French, and psychology, all have digital components. So we're starting to see all of our curriculums and all of our curriculum directors embracing that digital platform as well. Still me. Okay, an assessment. Very exciting. We've implemented iReady. And when Brian talks about this being a district initiative, this work we are representing to you is not our departments, but our district efforts towards this digital piece. And our assessment department has done a great investment with iReady. We have expanded use of Reach for Reading in the digital assessments. We've reviewed, we do a process where they do common assessments at the building and they review it in our analytics tool at the building level. We have started seeing Google and Microsoft Forms for online quizzes increase. So the students are getting more automatic feedback. And we've utilized our Panorama Ed surveys and resources. As we look forward, this was fun. This is out of Canvas. This is using some of the new tools, which is a drop and drag tool within our assessment piece. And so they're going to be rolling out common assessments in elementary science next year, which is really thoughtful and exciting. They can see results then of how our students are learning in science. We're going to be working on the digital management tool, training there, Canvas tools and outcomes. Canvas can be aligned to standards. That's what we're taking on next, is how to align our items to standards. Expanding Panorama Ed, and then we are launching interactive displays to support school improvement and learning. Tableau is one of those tools that's being used alongside of Insight and our data dashboard on our website. And now I'm going to hand back off to Brian.
Thank you, Joanne. So our last two goal areas, the one being outreach. This year, in reviewing the year, we provided at-home access for our high school students. I'll show you some data here on the next slide. We also spent some time really involving our stakeholders, our teachers, our students, our staff, our community, our cabinet, our leadership team, leadership at schools on the selection of the middle school device. It was a big decision year for us of which direction to go at the middle school level. We're really excited about the device chosen and involving all the stakeholders in that. Once again, there was Jeff Utek came in for the Parenting in a Digital Age outreach. We revised our award-winning technology handbook, and we were excited about that finished product. And we also did some outreach in working with some of our different groups, a Natural Leaders Information Night, and working with our Superintendent's Advisory Council, the technology one we meet with regularly, but also another example was spending some time with the Special Education Advisory Council and talking to them about the integration plan. This is the data from the Sprint hotspot. This is the usage. It falls right in line with sort of the national average from Sprint. On average, students are about 2 gigs of data of what they're downloading and what they're accessing. So we're right within that, what Sprint's sort of seeing nationwide. So our students, even if they exceed that too, it might slow down in its performance, but they still have plenty of capacity. We're excited about being able to offer 300 hotspots as part of this free grant from Sprint, free hotspots for our families that don't have internet access at home. It's been a great tool and outreach for our families. In looking forward, we don't have the same option for Sprint at the middle school level. I talked about that at our last board meeting, and we're going to be using the T-Mobile Empower Ed for middle school home access. And so met with them just today, feel really good about that program, about ensuring that our middle school students that taking home their device have at-home access. We want to expand our parent digital education of meeting parents and outreach to parents digitally in terms of more Zoom sessions or more links on our website that they can access, sort of that YouTube idea of videos and things they can access that we provide rather than creating times for them to come to the CRC or for more centrally located PD and outreach. Want to make that a goal this year. We're excited about a digital translation. We're actually piloting it right now, but setting up for our school offices to utilize Google Translate or the Translator Microsoft app for when families come in and they need to be able to communicate, that the office staff has technology readily available that they can communicate back and forth. And so we've actually piloted with some of the schools this year and expanding in that to be at all of our schools next year. And next year, we're beginning the process of ramping up to move our online forms, our enrollment forms and other forms, to be digitally, parents will be able to digitally access them, kind of moving away from paper, pencil, mail it in. When the office opens, I can turn it in, that kind of thing. So that's exciting for us in outreach. Again, this year, some of this we've shared with you before. We've had time as part of SLT to engage our leadership team. We have, it's part of our AOP, it's part of the school improvement plans. It'll be part of the saucer presentations again this year. It was this year as well. Continue our collaboration this year, as we've mentioned, with some of the different departments, and really embedding our help desk web, a workflow for a digital tool review. So when a teacher or somebody wants to use a digital tool that they want to make sure is approved, there's a process for them using our website to put that in the workflow so we can review that and get that turned around to get that on the district approved tools list. So we really ramped that up this year and excited to continue that. Looking forward, there's a few things that we are, especially in the idea of digital safety. We are producing, I work with, in many of our departments, the data governance group, and we want to put together sort of a digital safe practices handbook for our staff about making sure that they are working in a digital environment safely and protecting information safely. There's lots of risk out there. We want to help manage that. This year will be a focus on developing procedures for our digital citizenship policy. Procedure language, we've already started that work, but the idea is we'll have a procedure in full force in this coming school year. And as we'll talk about, we continue to talk about, we're looking for sort of funding streams to make sure that this integrated technology plan stays sustainable. So we did a book study early on Project Red. This is just a highlight of some of the examples. So for those of you that weren't with us at the time of reading the book, it's a great read, best practices about what's out there of districts that have gone to one-to-one. We can reflect on the right column some of the practices, some of the examples of the things present in the Everett School District that are examples of that. The number 2 one, change management, is really kind of the next phase of our plan. So we're sort of now as we're halfway through, sort of what is the point at where we're at, and it's that change from going from first to second order change, from going to having the stuff to utilization of the hardware, of the technology, not just infrastructure, but the utilization. And you could see in that graphic that, for example, in the blue graphic, not just substitution, which is the first part of SAMR, but for really redefinition and modification. And that's the next really focus for the next part, and because very soon will be practically one-to-one across the district. So the utilization and the full effectiveness and efficacy or efficiency of this will be realized once we move from that to that second order change. So this is what we've learned. We've learned about life cycle management, the importance of having that. We've learned that there is technical instructional support implications, and there are budget implications to this plan. And this is the current scope and timeline of where we're at this point. And as you've heard, all of our high school students have Windows digital inking devices. Our middle school students are going to have take-home digital inking devices, and our elementary students will have classroom Chromebook cards. And that will be fully realized in that last 21-22 year in the current plan. And actually in that current plan, you can see there's a built-in 4-year refresh cycle. So we'll actually be to the point where our high school students will be refreshing their initial devices as part of the current plan. So that's really exciting. This is the scope. You sort of see the snapshot of the next couple of years and what we have done each of the last few years. So that's the current timeline and the scope of the work. Ken's going to talk a little bit about the lessons learned with life cycle management.
So it won't be long until we're managing about 20,000 student devices. And with that massive amount of devices that are in the students' hands that go home every day and they need care and feeding, we're learning that it's important that we have some kind of a cycle where we actually, from the point we purchase the device, to where we actually get it surplused and sent away for some, to be crushed in an environmentally friendly way. We have different costs that that are associated with this life cycle that need to be factored in to our future planning. We're finding that from a reliability perspective, the Windows 10 devices that we have in the high schools, the industry is telling us that those are going to last about 4 years. And at that point, as you saw in the previous slide, we're going to have to refresh those devices with brand new devices after that. We're looking at, from a Chromebook perspective, they last a little bit longer, we're hoping. Again, the industry says you can probably get away with 5 years. We're going to try to push that. What gives us a little more optimism about that is the elementary school Chromebooks won't be going home. So we're thinking that those might last better as a result of that. So we're thinking 5 years would be fine. Some of the lessons we have learned with deploying these units to the schools, there's a cost associated with all the logistics required to actually get the device checked out and assigned to a student, and then at the end of the year to actually get the device back, refresh the operating system, clean it up a little bit, and then go do it all over again the following fall. There are costs associated with that we need to factor in going forward. Also, when it comes to the costs of damage or lost devices or stolen devices, that has to be factored into a budget going forward. So we make sure that we have the capacity to maintain a viable inventory so the students are not without devices if there is an issue with them being broken, stolen, or lost. Before I move on, I do want to talk about the fact that we've learned some lessons as well in terms of managing the operating system on each device. We've learned that the Windows 10 devices are very intense in terms of the need for technical support. They require a lot of care and feeding, and there are costs associated with that. As compared to the Chromebooks, we're finding that they come ready to go. They're ready to rock. As long as the Wi-Fi is working, and they will be at these one-to-one schools, they are operating quickly and reliably. That reflects back into the cost of maintaining those devices. And this transitions next, though, that we've got a bunch of devices that are associated with the levy. But in addition to those devices that we buy through the levy, there are also a lot of operational instructional devices that are purchased as a result of grants and other funding streams. We'd like to make sure that as an organization, we include all our devices into a life cycle management cycle so that we can maintain, again, the viability of those devices and make sure that we have the proper resources in place so we're not caught by surprise when certain things fail that perhaps we weren't aware of because, it's not under the capital projects that we're working on. And then that moves into the fact that, again, we really need to make sure that we have a full understanding of the inventory. One other thing that is becoming apparent as we move forward is the industry is moving away from buy the software once. We've talked about this in the past. You use it until you're done with it, like it could be forever. Our friends in the industry that provide this software decided that's not the most economic solution for them. So now we're actually buying licenses. So rather than buy it once, we're buying it every year. It's kind of like paying rent. And so we need to factor those, new models into our budgeting cycle as well when we look forward to another levy. And I'll turn over to Brian.
All right, to wrap things up. So as again, with lessons learned, demanding for digital tools subscriptions is in all areas, not just in instruction. We have to make sure our bandwidth is enough to make sure we accommodate for that. There's tools in operational, curricular, assessment, productivity. There's a lot that's out there. And we need to make sure that another lesson learned even in our hiring practices and working with our human resources department and our hiring practices are ensuring that the people that we are hiring and adding that there's the technical skills pieces that they're able to have and we can help support that to make sure there's sort of that minimum technical skills needed because everything has become so technical in terms of tool usage. In moving forward with our general fund, the ongoing support as some of these move from capital to general fund, the idea of professional development, job embedded coaching, continual technical staff, there's implications to that we've learned as we get to those conversations about when it is no longer capital. What sort of support are we able to continue to provide moving forward? And so we'll have some of those decision points coming forward that we'll need to make as an organization. And kind of looking forward at the next step, that was one thing we wanted to wrap up with is the idea of what would the refresh cycle look like. So we've got the lessons learned from the current, but sort of moving forward, what would that look like? Because in the next technology levy, a lot of it will be about life cycle management, as you'll see in the next graphic, because we would have implemented one-to-one, and we would need in our commitment to continue to refresh and update those devices. And so, as Ken had mentioned, the idea that we could have Chromebooks go 5 years and the Windows devices at high school continue at the 4-year, we believe in this case, that the 5-year model at elementary would be our focus, that even though they say Chromebooks can last 5 years, we're thinking the middle school students with take-home Chromebooks, maybe 4 years is the more accurate refresh cycle. And so you'll see in the graphic what this could look like moving forward. 21-22 is the current levy, that's why it's orange. That would be in the current technology 2016 levy. From 22 on, everything in blue there it would be in the next iteration of the technology levy. In terms of lessons moving forward, you can see between the blue and the orange there, in consideration for the next levy, the main areas of growth would be in continue to build out our infrastructure, that's important. You can see the largest increases is life cycle management. You kind of saw in the areas that we would need to make sure we do that in, as well as operational subscriptions and instructional subscriptions. A lot more in operational subscriptions than we had currently, but the bandwidth in both of those, we separated that out. Subscriptions, as Ken mentioned, that's the trend of the industry, so we need to make sure we would build that into the next levy. We are thinking about and kind of looking forward the assumption that it would be a 6-year levy. I know this is all, who knows? It could be a 4-year levy. We're just moving on the assumption that it would be a 6-year levy. This would be an example of what a timeline would look like if there was a February election in 2022. But the idea would be early on we would build in engaging our stakeholders throughout, but establishing some priorities and parameters early coming up in 2020, leading up to that to make sure, building that idea of input for what would be included in that, stemming from our lessons learned in our current 2016 levy. So in summary, we reviewed the progress and implementation of where we are to this point, looked ahead to next year, and then gave you a little taste of what we've learned and sort of the idea of looking forward and what that could look like for a possible next technology levy and what that might look like. And now we are available for questions.
Thank you very much. You've been very busy.
Yes.
Do directors have questions?
I just have a couple statements, if that's okay.
Sure.
With Canvas, I just confirmed, Everett Community College uses it, and so does Cascadia. So we're definitely setting our kids up for success when they transition, because Blackboard is not being, but the fact that they can start it here and then move on to it, that's excellent. And then Brian, you heard my stories about my naysayer daughter on why did these Jackson kids that already have computers really need this? That girl would sometimes have 2 computers going at the same time. That thing went with her everywhere. Did everything, and she was very sad to give it back. So from one student, you have a full convert. So I think this is great work that you did this for all 4 high schools this year. Phenomenal, phenomenal work. So thank you.
Thank you.
Director Lassane?
Great information. I'm very happy to have received it, and a lot of it is still going through my head, so I don't really have the questions. But in looking at it on page 19, you have a chart for teaching Canvas or teaching/Canvas, and you have percentage as to the usage of those particular areas. Those particular pages, modules, quizzes, etc. And I see the percentages there. I have no idea after using Canvas what we would be expecting. But we do expect that our teachers would be using it with fidelity and integrating it into the use of the computers that our kids have one-to-one. So for those schools that have had, like Everett and Sequoia, one-to-one much longer than Cascade and Jackson, what would we be expecting to see as far as fidelity use?
I will let Joanne answer that question.
So remember, this is year 1 for Canvas, even though it's year 2 for Everett and Sequoia. We kind of launched it really, we actually just kind of opened the door as we were figuring out how to set it up. So what we're not surprised to see is we trained heavily on modules. We see heavy use of modules. We are seeing our teachers start to understand the idea that I don't have to print copies. Kids can go back when they're absent. One of the things I learned early in my teaching is that a day goes away, and if they didn't take notes, it's as if it didn't happen. And what's happening, what we're seeing in the initial use is, how do I record my day so the kids can go back and they have their own archive of the learning in my classroom. So we're right on target. What we've trained is evident in those pieces. We have about 50% of our teachers using at some level in the high schools, using at some level, whether it's just to collect assignments, whether it's just to do announcements, whether it's to put their content up. A lot of them are using assignments. I will tell you, we have high use in Google Classroom still as well. So in Google Classroom as a stepping stone, we've spent, last week I had 5 Google Classroom converts who attended the Canvas session because it's what they know and they're familiar with it, and it plays well into having a one-to-one. But as they see it doesn't do certain qualities, as their content is now starting to be available through the portal there, as we're being able to push out links for them, we're starting to see that adaptation. So in year 1, to have 50% touch it, use it in some capacity is a pretty good start. But what we're seeing there is we were surprised not to see a higher use in quizzes. But I think it's because they have to create those questions, and that takes a little bit of time. I have to learn the platform and create. So we're curious to see that statistic in particular grow. They also have a new quiz engine that's really being launched that has more SBA-like items. So as that becomes fully developed by Canvas, we anticipate seeing that use. It's right now embedded in the assignment tool. So the 62% may be also using that new online assessment tool. Canvas hasn't pulled it out into their quizzes feature yet. So we're not surprised by these.
So when you say that, like quizzes, it has SBA-like questions.
So passage here and questions next to it.
How do we provide the teaching staff that PD that's necessary so they could know the connections to all of that, and those areas grow?
So as we're partnering with our content our directors and facilitators. So that's where the evolution of the quizzes in elementary school being in Canvas, they're actually using those feature sets in the common assessments that are going along with the science kits. We're starting to see our instructional facilitators hosting sessions after school, and then we're having the Canvas camp. So that's that teacher network too. Once we have the high users, then how do we turn them into being teachers in their own site and then their teams? So that's the evolution plan. Welcome.
Can I just interrupt really quick? Because I saved it for you, but you didn't say anything because it was your big point, getting middle school Wi-Fi. And so I want to thank you for doing that because I figured you'd say something, so I didn't want to say it, but but now I have.
But I'll say something to add to Director Mitchell's comments about using platforms like Canvas, Tableau at community colleges, because we use it at our work too. So taking that a bit further, preparing our kids for career as well. So, and again, the entire presentation was very exciting. Lots of good things happening. You had on one of the slides you put in hours. Does that hours include hours at home as well? Or
yes.
Just school hours?
What slide is that?
It is really early on.
Okay. Yeah, that usage slide, that is at home and that is at school. That is when their device is used. That usage slide there, that's at home.
At home as
and
well.
at school.
But then can that be sort of broken down into?
Between, I think we can get that information I can get that to you.
And then the term authentic learning, I kind of get what that means, but then are you able to tell me something about it, elaborate a little bit about it so that in case I'm missing something that I'm not sure?
I think the idea would be that it's teachers learning how they can use the device to provide their students authentic learning experiences. Right. That it's the tool, and by authentic, it's sort of like something that they would not be possible without the use of that technology tool. So redefining, augmenting, modifying their instructional approach and lesson design to really create that idea of a virtual field trip, not possible without technology. Really, that it is an authentic learning experience being possible through the use of that technology tool. It's a big shift for teachers to make, and continue to providing that PD support initially and then ongoing about how to accomplish that. So it looks different depending on your content.
Right.
But it's the idea of something that students can really engage in and really brings to life the learning.
And so we count them individually per content or opportunities, and then we look at, that's how we capture the data.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of capturing what authentic learning looks like is a lot about what's happening in the classroom and seeing it through learning walks and through conversations. It's going to look differently, but you got to really see it in action. You can't really measure authentic learning by looking just at the hours.
Exactly.
It's what are they using it for? And that's really sort of the next step for us, is to really engage with our schools and seeing what's happening in the classroom and being able to support that. So.
Then I guess, sorry. Yeah.
I'd like to see their home and classroom.
Okay, we can get that to you.
Breakdown.
Okay.
Then I guess the final question I had was, you identified identifying funding streams, and then you referenced levies and all that. But in those in the process of identifying funding streams, is it grants, private opportunities, or is it legislative?
I guess it could be a mixture. Initially, there could be some of the grants are state-funded grants. Unfortunately, some of the grants we don't qualify for based on how they're written. But anything we are possibly qualified for, we would want to include as a possible funding stream. Grants, the Sprint 1 million grant is a great example of a funding stream that we were able to take advantage of. So sometimes the grants are state-funded, sometimes they are with partners, strategic partners, and we're constantly outreaching to our local partners as well about some possible support. And funding streams could be, our partnerships, like Microsoft is one of our strategic partners. And so there's some support that they can provide as well, along with, general fund as a funding stream, the levy as a funding stream. So really it's kind of a mixture. Constantly looking for opportunities. Mm-hmm.
I had a follow-up question on the usage. I don't want to focus on that too much, but looking at the maximum usage at Jackson, which is about 600 hours average per student, if you figure there's 180 days of school, that comes out to like 3.3 hours per day, which if this is both school and home use, I guess I'm kind of surprised that the usage is that low.
Right. We had that discussion at Cabinet, like what's the right number? Like, and when you read the research out there is not really like a best practice sweet spot, because blended learning is such that the students shouldn't be on their computer the whole class period, that there's a blend of instruction and learning that takes place along with the use of technology. And so it really depends. In the research that we've read, it's anywhere between 3 and 5 hours a day. Again, the key is going to be what are those hours spent on using it for?
Sure.
And that's the next work for us, because there are tools out there that we could figure that out. But there's also making sure that it's not just the usage time, but it's how they're using it is really the measure. And that's kind of what the research says, that it's not just the time, it's what they're using it for. And so that's the next piece for us to look at. This is, when we showed you this slide last year, it's kind of in line with the usage last year as well. When we looked at Everett and Sequoia, the usage time was right in that sweet spot. So we'll continue to work and update you on, okay, now we're going to start giving you information. Now this is what they used it for when they were using their computer, and that will be really telling and informative. So this information didn't really surprise us too much in terms of the total time. But we would expect it to increase.
Right.
That would be our plan.
Yeah. Also on slide 43, where you have graphs for the considerations for next levy budget.
Yes.
So the 26, the blue is what we went out for in 2016.
Yes.
Which I can't recall the amount. Do you remember?
I believe it was 70 million. for technology.
70, okay.
Yep.
And then the orange is what we need in addition to the 70 million.
Right, it would be the idea about, this is, if we took with the lessons learned and we added to the 2016 levy, it would be what it would look like for the proposed increases. So it'd be increases above the 70 million for technology.
So I can't quite add up the numbers.
It's
but
96.
Some of it, oh, it's 96?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not double.
96, I thought it looked like more than that, but.
No.
Did too.
Okay.
Because there are some things that aren't, that maybe were on the 2016 that aren't on the 2022. Some of the things that maybe don't need to be addressed right. And so that those kind of fell off. And these are the ones that we captured that were the biggest areas of gain.
Is the one-to-one initiative the hardware, the actual?
One-to-one initiative.
It's the student devices.
The device,
Yeah.
thank you, yeah, okay.
There's a lot of pieces to it, so we probably should have broken it down a little bit. It's the student devices.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's lots of parts to it. That's why it's the biggest chunk.
And is that because the costs of the devices are expected to decrease that much? I mean, we're talking about having to replace most of them, right, over the next 6 years. So does that represent the fact that you think the cost will go down of the devices, or?
Yeah, we kind of we did rates of inflation about a device and what it would go up at a normal inflationary rate. But remember, from the one-to-one initiative in 2016, a lot of them are, it's sort of in place. So there's not a lot of necessarily increases on the one-to-one initiative. So it's just sort of sustaining the one-to-one initiative moving forward. The areas of growth necessarily are a lot in the life cycle management outside of the one-to-one initiative or subscriptions as well.
Yeah. A lot in subscriptions.
Yes, that was a big lesson learned for us, is we underestimated subscriptions.
They're going to yearly licenses versus you buy the software outright. That seems like an opportunity for them to excel in revenue.
Yes.
That's even for home use. That's home use. They've changed that too.
Yep.
So you can pay for subscriptions out of capital?
Right.
Levy? Yeah.
Capital transfer, yep.
Okay.
We could transfer money into general to do that.
Presumably, all these,
No, go ahead.
On this topic of subscriptions, as more stuff gets available and more products get put out there, and then we've got a rise in subscriptions, does that in any way mean that the actual expenditure we have on actual paper and books go down? Or is that not even a factor?
Well, we don't have the data right now to show that. That would be an assumption that would be a reasonable one to make in terms of, as we become more and more electronic, there's maybe printing costs go down or paper expenses go down, that there would be an offset there. I don't have the data to share with you yet that's realized. Initial usage would suggest that that's the case. Certainly more efficiencies, or, like you're going to be more efficient, you have more updated information. Lots of efficiency tools out there, especially with our operational folks, that they're excited to take advantage of, that there's just sort of limitations for their ability to do so.
Does initial training equate to professional development with increased changes in machines?
So I didn't catch the first part.
Does professional development...
Pam, can you pull your microphone?
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Would you include professional development in initial training?
Yeah, yes.
Is that what we're saying? So as we progress and grow into the technology world, professional development is going to cost us a lot more.
Right.
to ensure fidelity within the district of
Correct.
use of and integration of curriculum within
Right, we want to make sure that the
technology.
PD component is fully present and involved in the next plan as well, and strengthen that somewhat as well. And of course, as we move forward, we would have a lot more detail in each of these areas to provide you, but this is sort of the first blush for us to look at.
What type of work are we doing with our colleges that have education department with ensuring that they are also participant of developing teachers that have technology background or backgrounds in technology? What are we doing to ensure that that piece of the puzzle goes into teaching for?
That's a really good question. I don't know that my department especially has done that work with colleges, but I would certainly hope that that's taking place.
So that our PD costs don't continue to go higher, because we then receive teachers coming out of schools that have been trained in integrating technology with their curriculum.
I think you're always going to have PD based on new curriculum.
Yeah, we're
and stuff,
always going to
right?
have PD, but having the skills to use the
Initial
computer
skills.
I
technology.
presume colleges, Cascadia and Everett, which makes me think if community colleges are using this technology in their classrooms. I know the University of Washington uses 365 in classrooms. I mean, students are getting this in college. I can't say with fidelity at every university, but we're talking people who are 30 years younger than me. They are learning in a different environment than when I went to college.
Yeah,
Yes.
I suppose.
We won't go up.
Yeah.
We won't go to there.
Sorry.
One more question on the levy development. This is assuming a 6-year
Yes, yeah,
levy.
right.
I know we went 6-year last time, realizing this was a big launch, a huge project. Would a 4-year timeframe tie your hands too
think,
much?
well, I think Mr. Moore would like to weigh in on this.
Oh.
You can go either way. It's
Yeah.
just a matter of our sequencing and our plan. This would have accelerated front-end funding, so we'd have to think about our bond structure when we pass the 2020 bond. We'd have to finalize this so we can look at our debt structure to accommodate a higher distribution of taxes in the early years versus something that's smoothed out over many points of time. So 4 or 6 at this point, it doesn't matter until you put it on the ballot.
Okay, from a tax rate standpoint, but what about being able to do the work that you need to do? I mean, knowing that you have 4 years of guaranteed funding, does 4 years guaranteed funding versus 6 make a huge difference?
I don't know that it does.
Yeah. Interesting question, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you very much. Great
Thank you.
presentation, and we really appreciate your work. This has just been such a, from this perspective, such a smooth and successful implementation. So,
Yeah.
and I
Well, thank
remember
you.
last year we heard some of the students and the instructors speaking about how it had made such a difference in their classroom. So.
And
exciting.
I know as the board summer workshop, we'll be back with you, with students, to talk a little bit
Right.
about this. So that'll be a fun conversation.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. So we will take a 15-minute dinner break and reconvene at 6:45. Actually, a 17-minute dinner break. Eat leisurely.
Happy belated.
dinner break or just break?
No problem.
Yes, I
Oh, no, we always, we're starting to do that. So I expect to
I'm trying to set the stage for that.
Awesome.
Some people are showing their self-worth. And Brian had to run.
You don't understand the question.
I said, gosh.
Or your grandkids.
So I said, we still got it.
That's good. Oh, yeah, she asked me the same.
Unless there's more than one.
Jules.
That's could
Yeah.
be, yeah.
This year's the this year was the last year, what the major conversion was, so we just believe because of the amount of information that was inside. Okay. I'm square.
Yeah.
Ruth, I can't wait. I saved
Good daughter. Number 2 is graduation.
Sure you did, Jeannie. I'm working I'm on cabinet.
I do.
How's it going? It's going good. Good. Ready for today to be over?
I'm excited. Yeah, but I'd rather go. Is that what you're
I worked out a plan, Bruce. We're going to talk about it So we're going to talk about it tomorrow. I have a couple of questions about so I don't know if I have time to call us. I don't know if I have questions.
So I'm laughing, because it's the first thing I did when because they use it at the expo. And so I said, Shannon, you did, she goes, of course I did, you trained us well. So it's in the great book now. So now that's one of those alerts we have that's awesome. But yes, and the special report, but no, I make sure.
I figured you had.
It was a cute video.
Yeah, you should see Everett guys. I had it didn't happen at summer reading challenge. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is. I'm just trying to think why. Yeah.
If I go conversions, you know, external things. Kind of like this one. Translation to the new codes.
Oh, I saw that. Oh, it's weird. I pulled in this the other day and I'm like, shit.
Like, this is a G.
Genie upgraded. Prius to a Tesla.
I know, Prius. It's bad.
Just say that. 20 million the first year, 20 million the second year, 20 million the third year. They only needed 4 million. They only did 16 million. That was the score. The cost, they didn't spend it. I just keep 50%, 60% step to get it back. They only 14 for rate drops. Kept saying it's 50% to get 60%. You see here. 2019, we filled up
I always just wake up. Well, anything with that.
Stems the floor. It's either like 10%.
I was good. But now I'm not too
I would be looking in the wrong direction.
Yeah, that's gonna be like, I had a summer study abroad. To me, it seems like it's within the window, but, and it was weird because it seems like it's only been the last couple of months.
We have to get up there and everyone's gonna just have eaten.
It's okay, you can sleep through it, I'm used to it.
Oh, wow.
They're in Maine, yes, they are, they're in Maine.
Wow, that's like far away, sleepaway
Oh,
camp.
they're everywhere.
Well, the Y picked a good day to go bowling today, so. My
Are you
daughter-
on bowling today?
My daughter's a counselor at the Y.
Nice.
And so, she's based at our Forest View School, it's her school. And, but they went bowling today, so it's perfect on a rainy day to go bowling.
But other people in there.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to, ready to go, okay. All right, we'll continue on with section 11, and we have a third quarter financial update. Good evening, Ruth.
Good evening. How is everyone today?
It's great.
I will summarize for you our third quarter district operations. Oh, here it is. Which is also related to the May financial report on the consent agenda. And actually, May is very consistent with the April financials, so I will go fairly quickly through this. May is also the what sets the beginning fund balance for our operating budget, which I'll talk about later as well. So. I'll provide an overview of 5 funds with more in-depth look at general fund. Our major driver of state revenues, as you know, is student enrollment, and it looks like we will be below our FTE enrollment by about 75. That is due to a change in the number of minutes for a full-time student. We didn't anticipate as much of a drop as what we saw. And then also an increase in part-time students at the secondary level, which is also related to that number of minutes change. Our projected revenues and transfers are estimated at $319 million. They include $3 million more in transportation revenues. We were able to find out in the last month that we can keep those additional funds because the state is going to allow us to carry forward those transportation monies. However, we do have them restricted in our fund balance so that they can be spent on transportation purchases. Special education enrollment, as you've heard in past months, is up. Expenditures are within budget, which creates an additional fund balance as well. And as well as safety net revenues are up. We haven't included all of those that we expect to get, but the majority of them are included in this revenue picture. Projected expenditures are $312.7 million, well within board authorized appropriations. As you can see, third quarter expenditures have ticked up, and they are actually more in line with what I would have expected in prior quarters. Categorical expenditures continue to be lower than anticipated, but any carryover amounts will be restricted in fund balance. That provides an ending fund balance projection of $31.7 million, which is about 10.2% of total expenditures, which is the same as what we had told you in April. That reflects our higher special education and transportation revenues, as well as a large increase in a categorical carryover, which is restricted fund balance. Without that additional restriction, the fund balance would be about 8.8% at the end of the year, rather than the 10.2. As far as other funds, capital projects is revenues are in line with expectations. Appropriations were $115.5 million. That is resulted from the budget extension that you approved last month or 2 months ago. And expenditures are trending as expected. May ending fund balance was $44.9 million, almost $45 million. And we expect that to continue to decrease as projects move forward in the capital projects fund. Debt service fund, May ending balance was $36.4 million. And as you can see, we get spring and fall influx of tax dollars, and we pay our interest and principal in December and June. So we expect that fund balance to go down in June based on the principal and interest payment. Associated Student Body Fund is $1.4 million, and we expect that to continue to decrease as students bring in a lot of their money in the fall, and then they continue spending throughout the year. Third quarter ASB is similar to prior quarters. They are spending down their fund balance. And May ending fund balance for transportation vehicle fund was $125,000. However, there was a transfer that needs to be made to pay for a bus that they purchased, transferred from general fund or from transportation into general fund to reimburse general fund for the purchase of the bus. And so the balance really is more like $60,000. Not quite enough to buy another bus, and so we're going to wait until that depreciation revenue comes in August. That was pretty quick, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Questions, anyone?
Can I just give one education point for Dr. Saltzman?
Please.
On if you can bring up that ASB.
Sure.
Something that we noticed a few years ago was that high fund balance for these are our 3 comprehensive high schools. But what they all started to do was decrease their or stabilize their ASB card prices, stabilize or decrease their parking fees, allow for some more free things, because Jackson, being our biggest school, was holding, $1 million. And so that she does work very closely with them, and every ASB president, I think, and treasurer for about the past 4 years has heard from us, spend down, because they present to us every spring. And so this is something that we've paid a special attention to, because we want to make sure that every kid is benefiting from this money. So thank you for your work with this.
Absolutely.
Because that is, I think you have worked very closely for them to appreciate not holding on to all that money. So
Thanks.
There's a lot of moving parts, so it's difficult to get them to drill into the details enough to, be able to do the spend down thoughtfully. So they've done a really good job. Anything else?
So you said the May 31st fund balance becomes the fund balance for next year?
The projection.
Projection?
August 31st, 31 projection. So we project every quarter or every month actually, where our August 31 ending fund balance will be for the current year. And so the May projection for August is what solidifies our beginning balance for the coming year's budget.
So it's not the May balance?
No, it's not the May balance. I'm
I
sorry, that
misunderstood
was
that, and I was just like, I was just sitting here thinking, why would they use May when we've got 3 more months to go? Okay.
But really, what can we expect then? You said that at the end of May, we had a 10.2% fund balance, but most of it being restrictive, and without the restriction, it was at 8.8. Can we expect that we're going to be relatively close to those numbers?
That's my estimate for August.
For August?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's my estimate for August. Our estimate for August.
Our estimate.
And yes, definitely things could change here and there. If categorical programs, for example, spend more than we've anticipated, then that fund balance could go down, but then the restrictions will also go down.
Yeah. Understand.
Okay, as always, a very thorough report.
Thank you.
With no questions afterwards, so thank you.
All right.
Don't go too far away.
Don't go too far away. Okay.
All right, we'll move on to section 11, section 12, unfinished business. There is no unfinished business. So moving on to 13.0, adoption of the operating budget for fiscal year 2019-2020, first reading.
A couple of opening comments. First of all, I did have an opportunity to meet with Dr. Saltzman, and so we won't run at a pace that's educational for him because we've been able to spend time with him. So secondly, this year with the legislature concluding on time and with the outcomes being very similar to what we talked about in our 2-hour board study session, you'll find that the information I'm providing you is very consistent. So again, I'll move at a reasonable pace through the information. I think to begin with, it's important to update you on how the final legislative outcomes did align with what we've accomplished. And then for our community, we always want to make sure that they understand that a budget process isn't just the event that occurs today and in August. It's a year-long process that we go through. I do want to provide compliments to not only Ruth Floyd as budget director, Karen Buckman, but the entire team. And I think what you'll see and what I've explained to Dr. Saltzman, what we're able to state at the new administrator orientation is how they're a part of the big picture. Each and every one of us play a role in coming together and understanding what our challenges are and what our opportunities. So with that, I think I've sort of gone through the outline. Legislative outcomes. This was more or less the checklist that we went into the legislature with, and we were counting on and banking on that special, not only the levy cap being adjusted to what our voters had approved, but also that special education funding would be remedied to some extent. We're still at about a $7 million shortfall, I believe, looking into the future, but the resources that came in, you'll see definitely contributed to that. Full funding of School Employee Benefits Board didn't occur. Some increases as to the prototypical school model did not occur. And we still have uncertainty in the future relative to the regionalization factor. While there were some conversations of raising the levy as high as $3,500 per student, the $2,500 we are able to get close or access that $2,500 without going out for a supplemental levy. And I think even if they had gone to $3,500 with our commitment to a bond in 2020, it probably wouldn't be beneficial to us moving forward. So we'll think about that out in 2022 when we reset the entire bond. I think I mentioned this is the monies that came through higher than what we had expected there, but I guess, again, the shortfall we anticipate for 1920 in special education is still $6.3 million. SEB, we are in a much better position than many districts around us. We've noted that for two reasons. One is that our current benefit structure with a trust and one employee pooling is very similar. And when we look at the initial what would we call it, the premium cost for employees, it looks to be a win for everybody. For the district, we will invest $700,000 more than we are in this current year. And as we go forward, we're going to have to consider that just an ongoing annual event unless they do some work around part-time employees. And that's why food services program is most impacted, because they generally, as a program under our trust, we invest and pay into the trust based upon the FTEs within the food service program. Well, under SEB, we have to invest into SEB based upon the head count of employees within the program. So even the multiplier will have an impact. But also remember, we have no funding for healthcare benefits for our food services workers. They're self-supporting and self-funded through the program and through title or federal dollars. So that's an area we're watching, and that's why earlier in the month we increased the meal prices next year by 25 cents. Still in the average range, but we're watching that closely going forward. And you can also anticipate part of that fund balance that Ruth talked about of around the range of $1 million in food services will be spent down this year as we look to the future. K-3 class size, we're now able to fully access that because of Tambar Creek. So we, one thing they didn't do in the past, they have not required districts to be compliant. So other districts around us that don't have the space or don't have the math specialists will lose funding unless they staff it. So we're in a good position. I did want to spend a minute on the levy because it's sort of confusing when we talk about calendar years. As you can see in the second set of documents, we went from 2018 being able to collect 62 million. Our levy had reduced to 51 million, and then 2019 it again immediately dropped to 32.8 million. We know our voted levels are around 2,300 per student, or they are for 2018, so we anticipate collecting 43.3 million. But because it's a blended year, when you go down below, you can see the real change in budget year is our levy revenues went from 51.9, and in this year they were 41.4. And then we anticipate what we were looking at is 34 million, but because they made the levy fix, we're netting about 5.3 million more next year. And that's what's really helped offset some of our costs looking forward. After that, it begins to step up, as you can see above. So we anticipate resources coming into the extent, but they're still not coming into the extent that they will offset that regionalization phase out. And I'll show you that diagram in a minute. This is just to, again, demonstrate to our constituents and our community that we are not increasing the overall tax rate. And the key is when we had discussions last year about future bonds and future levies, we took the opportunity in some of the sales of the recent bond to reduce the overall tax burden to our taxpayers by selling more bonds that are paid off in 2019. So as we move into 2020, that current bond debt is reduced, and therefore when the newspapers or print that the outcome of the election is going to cause your taxes to go up. In fact, in Everett, we can say they are not. And they're not going forward, including levy capacity that was mentioned by our IT team, and as well as a $400 million bond, should you choose to put a bond that large on the ballot. So overall message to our customers, and I think you know this, is that we are not raising your taxes as a result of the legislative outcomes. Going forward, we know about the regionalization and the likelihood that it'll phase out, so we're keeping an eye on that. We are also in our long-term projections for the general fund, which are mandated by the state, but we've always done so. We're not building in labor increases that we experience this year in the future. So as we think to the future, that is a vulnerability. We're assuming that the influx of McCleary dollars for salaries, that we've stabilized our market rate. But it's still an uncertainty, as we know, in the world we live in. Family Medical Leave Act went into place, state mandated, and we anticipate that as a cost increase to about $250,000 annually. So when you look at some of the work we've done, this is the projection we have going forward in our four-year levy, that we've built that fund balance up to 10.2. We're anticipating a lot of those categorical monies will be spent and will be down to 6.7. So as we start looking at 2021, as we look in the mid part of next year, we'll talk about to the extent we have to be prepared to make reductions based upon the best information available at that time. But this is what you'll see in the raw numbers that Ruth's going to present you here shortly. Budget development process, we all know we honor the three lenses: strategic plan, state of the school reviews, and the student data. We have an integrated process that shows how that all fits together, and oftentimes we need answers before we need answers to questions before they're available. Most notably this year was our efforts to hire early, despite the fact that we may not get the levy dollars. And we did an attrition analysis that we shared with you at the budget retreat that showed that, yes, in fact, even if we had half the attrition of the year before, we have the capacity to hire. And a lot of that was because of the enrollment increase and because of those K-3 positions. So while when you look at the list of reductions, it says less educators, or we tighten class size. We didn't do it by reducing educators. We did it by not adding educators when the enrollment came up in our schools. Always want to honor the investment of time of not only our community members and our students, but our staff, because this does take work as we go through time. So I want to formally acknowledge all the efforts of our teams, including our 3 labor groups, and we all know them as friends, and they're around the building quite a bit. Ultimately, we began the process by working with the cabinet, filtered down into our areas of responsibility. We developed a draft list. We took it to the Fiscal Advisory Council. Generally, that group looked at them, and you could almost look at this level of reduction as being doable in the sense that each year we should re-engineer what we do, not fund things that may not be as effective and look to put our investments elsewhere. But over the past 4 years of McCleary, we found that this was a doable list of reductions. We went through that equally with you. I think the one thing that we were going to cut that everybody said no to, and it sounds bad, but it was doable, was the model for drug and alcohol rehab, but we didn't do that. So ultimately, we took that to the superintendent's leadership. They basically concurred with the process. Overall, we have increases in levy funding, special ed, and maintenance. But then again, we always have numerous offsetting expenditures, and these are all built into our operating budget for next year. So ultimately, as I mentioned, we did, of the list that you agreed to reduce, and we left several elements in place. We aren't going to reduce grades 4 and 5 in terms of class size, and some of our assistant principal supports, some of the curriculum. So not only did we take that $7.8 million list and pare it down, but we also ran it back through the Fiscal Advisory Council, who concurred with our outcomes. So as Ruth begins to go into the nuts and bolts of our actual general fund, just want to preface it by saying we always kind of measure, and your curiosities are focused on, well, what did we do last year compared to this year? And Ruth is going to be excellent at answering those questions, but understand that last year we were in a model where we were building, because by July 10th of each year we have to present and to our public and publish with the ESD the formal budget document, and then after that you have to have the formal public hearing, announce it. Remember last year we were in bargaining and that environment changed, so the budget that we started in July had to be completed and ready for adoption before we settled a major contract. So she will eloquently prepare you and walk you through the changes, and I will, unless there's any question on the upfront work, I will turn it over to Ruth.
Hello again. As discussed, our May projection for August sets the 1920 beginning fund balance, and that is $31.7 million. Which is the 10.2% that we discussed earlier. Revenues and transfers in, we expect to be about $338.9 million. Expenditures are outpacing revenues at about $347.3 million, bringing our projected ending fund balance down to $23.3 million. And that is 6.7%, which is what that graph that Jeff had up on the screen reflected as well for the end of 1920. Our strong fund balance and the levy fix does maintain our fund balance above the 5% until 2021, when additional cuts are expected, assuming no other actions are taken by the legislature. Our our revenues and expenditures both increased quite a bit. Expenditures outpaced revenues, and you can see there that restricted and committed and then assigned other purposes, beginning fund balance. Those restrictions are quite high, as discussed earlier, due to categorical funds being carried forward into next year as restricted fund balance. And then we're assuming that those will not completely be spent, but some aggressive spending will happen to bring those balances down by the end of 1920. Enrollment is expected to increase. Headcount enrollment is expected to go up by 174. And that is relates to an FTE of about 120 increase. And that is approximately how much we anticipate from the actual 18-19 as well. And enrollment multi-year forecast, as you know, we need to display 4 years of our budget, our enrollment, our staffing, and our budgets for all funds. And this is that slide. Over the course of the 4 years, we expect a 3-year increase of 646 student FTE. And that relates to our enrollment estimates, the medium range projections by our consultant, enrollment consultant. And staffing includes contingency positions. Certificated staff are expected to go up by 15.5 FTE, and that is because of anticipated enrollment, opening of Tambark Creek, as well as special education related services caseload. We always look at that at the beginning of the next year to make sure we're in line with where we want to be with caseloads. Certificated administrative went up 1 FTE due to the newer certificated position we are hiring, or we hired for the MTSS, which is multi-tiered systems of support. And classified staffing, we expect to increase about 21 FTE. That again is due to Tambark Creek, as well as special ed, one-to-one paraeducators, those kinds of increases. Our multi-year forecast is looking at an increase of about 64.1 staff FTE. That is a fairly conservative number based on anticipated enrollment. It doesn't include any major program increases or categorical and grant increases. So it's kind of just keeping pace with the enrollment that we expect to increase. Our budgeted revenues compared to 18-19 budget is lower. As Jeff mentioned, taxes are lower because of that blend that we have to do between our 2019 tax levy and our 2020 tax levy. 19 had the dip, and so we're still seeing the effects of that. You'll see in 2021 that will start to tick up again. And then state general and state special purpose revenues are increasing as a result of flow through from the state for IPD increase, salary increases, as well as the portion that they're paying of the new SEB program for state benefits. And it also kind of right sizes our special education revenues and our transportation revenues. As we discussed earlier, we had an increase in those over the course of 18-19 compared to budget. And so that 13% is not only right sizing it for 18-19, but also there's enrollment increases and so on for 19-20. Federal special purpose is in the range of where we would expect it for increases, inflationary increases. Revenues from other entities also are in line, and transfers are from Capital Projects Fund, and that relates to the software licenses as well as maintenance expenditures that we transfer money into general fund from capital projects so we can make those purchases within general fund because the law says we need to do that. So it is going up $650,000 next year because we're transferring money for some maintenance repairs. We did not do that this year. That's $200,000, as well as increased costs for those IT software licenses and so on. And this is a graphical representation of our revenues. 18-19 budget was 77.4% state and 12.8% levy. And then for reference, I wanted to also give you 17-18 actual was 72.3% state and 19% levy. So you can see how as the state revenues are going up, that pie is changing a little bit as far as how much of the total is being funded by our local taxpayers. Maintenance supplies and operating costs, this is something that the legislature required. We put in to our budget presentation for you, and it shows that we are spending all of our state revenues on our non-salary costs. But keep in mind this excludes local levy expenditures such as early learning, such as activities and athletics. The expenditure side does not include those because they're on the levy portion. Budgeted expenditures, program summary. This is as expected based on salary and benefit increases. Career and technical made quite a big jump because we do have carryover from 18-19 that we're anticipating they will spend down. So that increases those expenditures. And then federal special education, we are anticipating an increase in our safety net. So that's why that goes up a little bit higher than the others. Career and technical, here's the graphic version of this. Career and technical, as the numbers on the previous slide says, that percentage has gone up from last year. It was 3.9% last year. This is even more detail by program, nothing out of the ordinary on here. The only thing I would want to bring to your attention is that significant decrease in Program 79, other instructional programs, and that's because the state has told us that we need to put our early learning into a Program 88 now. And so ECAP was part of Program 79. We removed it in 1920 from Program 79, and you'll see here that Program 88. They call it child care, but they're going to change the name to early learning. Yes, it's a program that they needed to use. They had it available. They wanted to use it. They just didn't get the name changed yet. So I think next year, by the time I am up here talking to you about it, it'll be called early learning. But yes, that's Program 88, and that's where we put our early learning. That is not only paid with our levy funds, but also ECAP, which is a state-funded grant that flows through Snohomish County. Here's another way to look at expenditures by activity. Nothing out of the ordinary here other than school administration and other support activities are a bit higher than the others because of the opening of Tambar Creek. And here's the graphical representation. If you have any questions about that, I'm happy to answer. Our objects, yet another way to look at expenditures. And you'll notice that supplies and materials have dipped down below where budgeted 18-19 was. It will be closer to where actual 18-19 is. What we had done was, because they had given us all of that salary money all in 1 year, as you'll remember last year, we talked about that they influxed 100% of the salary money where they were going to do 50% and 50% this year. Because because they did that and it was kind of a last minute decision, we didn't have time to fully flesh out plans for spending the categorical money. And so we intentionally put it into supplies and materials. And last year you saw a big increase on this slide. And so this year, now that they've made plans and it's now being spent under salaries, purchase services, travel, etc., capital outlay, that decrease in supplies is apparent. Purchase services has increased, and it's kind of a similar situation with categorical last year, where transportation we're spending the carryover for transportation, and we put that in purchase services as a placeholder, considering that we contract out and Durham is in purchase services. So that's why that is increased. It's a placeholder until we know exactly where that will be spent. And another graphical representation, we have, let's see here, last year salary and benefits were 84.1% total. This year they're 83.9%, so very consistent. Consistent that we spend most of our expenses on our people. Multi-year outlook, the slide 10 that Jeff went over, that had the graphical representation of this. And as you can see, in 21-22, we expect our expenditures to be, or I'm sorry, in 2021, we expect our expenditures to be below that 5 to 6% fund balance of total that we would like to see it at. So we will definitely be making some adjustments if the legislature doesn't come through and provide some relief to us on the regionalization phase out. All right, and ASB, very consistent with prior years. They've increased their, expect to increase their revenues and expenditures, and expect to decrease their fund balance by a portion. They were very aggressive in thinking that their fund balance was going to go down in 18-19. They didn't quite get there, and so I think they were a little bit more realistic in 19-20. And this actually is the same information that you saw on May 7th that the students presented to you. Multi-year, we're still expecting that the fund balance will go down year over year to about 22% in 22-23. Debt service fund, we expect that to be in line with our bond schedule and principal and interest schedule, and payments for fall 2018 and spring 2019 bond sales begin in December 2019. So you're seeing that reflection in the budget here as well. And then year over year forecast assumes principal and interest payment for $400 million bond authorization in spring 2020. And then they'll be sold in 3 issuances, similar to the way we sold the 2016 bonds. Capital Projects Fund, the 2019-20 budget reflects that we're spending down those projects that we are, that fund balance will continue to decrease, and the major projects in 1920 include Woodside Elementary modernization, North Middle School Phase 2 modernization, as well as the end part of Tambar Creek, and some technology initiatives, and then other projects that are very familiar to you. Multi-year forecast for Capital Projects Fund basically estimates that we spend down the 2016 bond, and our levy continues to fund an operating transfer into general fund. And then our transportation vehicle fund is We expect about $112,000 in state depreciation revenues. And then the $210,000 is for capacity. That gives us enough to purchase 2 buses. Depending on the actual balances, we may only be able to purchase one. Yeah. And then a very similar forecast for transportation vehicle fund, just assuming same revenues and expenditures as we go out the 4 years. I apologize for going over my time.
It was me.
Can I answer any questions? That was a lot of information.
Yeah.
Yes.
See the wheels spinning here. Does anyone have questions? Director the same? No?
Yes. Going back to, and I know this probably wasn't what you provided, Ruth, so I apologize. Page 6, when we start talking about K3 class size reduction. Let me try and get back to page 6. Okay. I'm not quite sure I follow what you're saying. In the 2019-20, K3 staffing is compliant for full funding, and then it has 3 bullet points down the bottom. Prior addition of math specialists, opening of Tambar Creek Elementary, and large grade 5 moving to middle schools. My concern is the large grade 5 moving to middle school. Why would that affect the K3 staffing being compliant to, I don't understand, how does that affect it?
So let's look at it in terms of what we've asked our voters in the past and what we may be asking our voters in the future, and that's to add on to elementary schools to accommodate lower class sizes in grades K through 3. Going through time, we've been diligent about trying to, the state fully funded us as if we have that number of staff members eligible in the formula. One of the strategies we used that both met the needs of the saucers and counted towards the K3 class size without an additional classroom was the math specialists.
I understand that part.
And the next piece is the large grade 5, if that's specifically what you're talking about. This ability to meet the K3 class size ratio is for next year only. Once we grow and continue to grow, we're again going to have that, we're going to grow out of our physical space unless we add portables or other means. But ultimately, we're just continuing to exacerbate the number of portables in the district. So those 3 things for this year with the opening of Camp Tambar Creek allowed us to fully meet the class size ratio.
Right.
Now, so that's how we're able to accomplish it, and we know we can do that for next year. The following year, we may fall a couple short, and our revenues will go down.
I don't get what the grade 5.
Okay, we had an unusually large grade 5, and it moved up next year to grade 6. So our middle school enrollment went up, and our elementary school enrollment went down.
Providing space for K3.
Providing space.
Providing the space that we need.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So it's an anomaly that allowed us to meet the K3 ratio, along with those other factors.
Okay. All right. Now, you also mentioned the SEB on that same page. Annual funding for SEB falls short of $700,000, and you mentioned that it'll probably be $700,000 every year going forward.
There's a number.
Or I thought I heard that.
You did hear me say that that's what we had built into our multi-year projections. There's a couple of factors that can build into that. One is if they provide greater limits on part-time employees. Right now, substitutes, unless they become a long-term substitutes, aren't eligible. Once they work 630 hours or are anticipated to, we're paying a cost that we didn't incur. This shortfall is looking at the way it is structured today. So some of the some of the things that we're trying to influence the legislature on is to, or the healthcare authority via the legislature, is to clean that up and so that that imbalance of getting paid by head count or by FTE and going out by, you know. The other thing I think I didn't mention earlier, because we invest in employee salaries, we don't have a lot of teachers over the formula. So if we have 1,100 teachers that are funded, say, for example, another district like Bellevue the same size is 1,250. They're not going to get the FTE funding for those employees. So other districts are in a more difficult situations. They may have lower salaries, but they have more unfunded bodies. So those dynamics all mix into the cost of SEB to where we're more fortunate than many districts for those reasons.
Thank you.
May I ask a question about teacher contract, which is not part of this conversation, but I have been reading other districts giving some pretty astronomical salaries again. So when is our teacher contract open in light of the decrease in ending fund balance the next few years?
It's open for 2020 next, we'll be bargaining next.
This coming school year? Okay, thank you.
And again, this projection assumes a more historical increase with the educators versus the unprecedented ones that we have experienced.
On slide 31, the increase in career and technical education expenditures over 4 million. Are we getting extra funds from the state for that, or we are just?
A portion of it. So a portion of that is related to an increase in enrollment over this year over what we budgeted. And so the state provides the money for the enrollment increase. And then they provided the money in this year, but we aren't spending everything this year. And so we're carrying it forward, and it's restricted in our fund balance because the state says we can't defer the revenues. We have to keep the revenues in the 18-19 school year and have the carryover restricted. And so a portion of that was money received this year. So that's why expenditures went up so much, whereas revenues didn't go up quite as much because we're spending that carryover.
And having just had a study session on that topic, does this category include kind of what we were talking about in that study session? Like our programs that we want to build and
Dana's nodding, but yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm just thinking forward on a couple topics, as you'll remember from last time, as we build out these career pathway programs, certainly a piece of purchasing will be equipment. When we think about the vocational building over at Everett High School. The other piece that we didn't spend a lot of time talking on last week was our the shifts we're making in staffing to accommodate these pathway programs and internship programs to make sure that they're supported. So those are two kind of big buckets that'll be accommodated in that portion of the budget.
Thanks, Dana.
This may be a part of it too. I wonder, I was looking at the increase, let's see, page 38, I think. The line item capital outlay that bumps up a little over $2 million.
Yes, that actually is for CTE. I anticipated that some of their carryover, or we anticipated that some of their carryover would be put into capital outlay, and as Dana said.
Did that also include transportation?
No, the transportation is in purchase services. That also increased significantly.
Facilities.
And this is probably in here somewhere, but it's not popping out at me. Are we budgeting for increased staffing in the area of the social, emotional wellness of our students, like more counselors, more social emotional staff. I forget what they're called at the elementary school level, but did we increase the budget for those positions?
We had
Being wonderfully vague.
anticipated reducing our counselors with the opening of Tambar Creek because the schools weren't as big, and we backed off on that a little bit. And I think that part of that was for the social emotional. I don't know if Peter wants to talk more about it.
One thing that
the
comes to mind,
MTSS.
yeah, exactly. One thing that comes to mind is the addition of the director of the multi-tiered systems of support and student and staff wellness position that you all were briefed on, and who started just yesterday, in fact. So the coordination of the wellness pieces there, both for staff and students, plus the MTSS, the pre-special ed referral processes to support SEL, or social emotional learning, among all populations, but particularly students, prior to being referred for special education services is really important, and that's going to be a very, very long-term investment that we're looking forward to.
Madam President, may I ask a follow-up on that? One of the reductions I saw on the fiscal advisory sheet there was the reduction of assistant principals at middle school and elementary school. Is that also going to cause a reduction?
No, it is a part of trimming down the reductions from the 8 million to the 4.9.
Okay.
Those positions were not reduced.
Okay, gotcha.
And those were purely, again, relative to our schools becoming smaller at elementary.
Okay. So
it
instead
doesn't
of
mean that-
2, there would probably be 1?
There was kind of if it's over 700,
they would get an
yeah,
additional.
and now we've revised that number down to 650 in terms of an application, given the complexity of their work.
Okay.
And so that was one of the things that from the March board, those were actually adjusted in that balance. So yeah, they're still there and a little bit more.
Okay.
You know what the net number of new positions is at Tambark Creek? I mean, recognizing that teachers who are already teaching in the district went there, and I guess their positions have to be filled at
We
their
can
school.
probably get you.
I'm
the
just
staff.
curious. I really hadn't thought about the numbers of opening a whole new elementary school.
Well, we can.
Staff
Yeah, we
and-
can
yeah.
get you that number. We
A
don't
lot.
have the allocation model with us, but certainly we have a staffing allocation model.
Hands is up
Larry
over
has a
here.
hand.
He knows them all by name, too.
The Tambar Creek school website has its teachers listed on the staff page, if you'd like to go there and see the staff numbers as it sits right now. Para-educators and support staff will be added here shortly, once they're fully hired.
And then keeping in mind that many of the positions move from other buildings, so they aren't truly ads.
Yeah, because they're not new kids to our district.
Correct.
They're
Right.
moved kids.
So the teachers moved.
The teachers moved.
We needed a new principal, we needed a new custodian.
New
Those are the
secretary,
kind of
yeah.
overhead positions that we had to add.
Right.
That's what I was wondering, is like the net increase. Yeah.
Special ed, self-contained classrooms.
But we still have new counselors, because counselors aren't shared, are they?
Correct.
That's correct.
But
And a
we'd
librarian.
anticipated that increase already
Yeah.
as a part of opening Tambark Creek. And so originally, we thought that we could back off on that, and then we ended up not.
The overhead cost was about 1.3 million by adding all the planning educators and the PE teachers, librarians, counselors. reading.
Utilities,
Yeah.
custodians.
Really not that much for a whole new school. Any other questions? No? Okay, so this we'll have a second reading of this at our
Correct.
August.
We will be advertising in the newspaper 2 weeks prior and 1 week prior, and inviting the public to come in for a public hearing. As you know, we seldom have attendees, but and then we'll just have a really abbreviated version of this presentation.
We don't expect it to change much at all
Yep.
between now and then.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll move to section 14, upcoming agenda items. Dr. Saltzman,
Okay.
want to talk about those?
Yes, 14.01, special meeting August 15th, summer commencement. All right, 14.02, special meeting August 20th, board annual planning workshop. 14.03, the regular meeting August 27th, post-secondary enrollment patterns. 2019-20 budget second reading and hearing. Board goal progress review. June financial report, July financial report, college and the high school contract, high school science lab architect selection, and then we're doing the recognitions of teachers of the year.
Okay. That moves us to section 15. We do not have an executive or closed session this evening.
Oh, ma'am.
So that leads us to section 16.0, adjournment. Everyone have a great summer until we meet again. Thank you for, although our year's not over, but thank you for all the work and presentations this year. It's been another just fabulous year, so.
Happy 4th of July.
Oh, that's, yeah. I hope you all get some time for rest and relaxation during this summer, too. Adjourn.
Of course, they don't get much summer.